Right. It says that we're live. There's a live a little symbol in the corner, so I'm guessing we're live. Right. Well, this is simply going to be a discussion about flat Earth, religion, and just everything else of that. But it's not actually going to be a debate. It's not actually going to. Well, hopefully, though. I suppose that most people that turn in are going to be looking for a dumpster fire. But let's hope that it doesn't turn into a dumpster fire, because as most people know on my sort of channel, I like to try and work out the reasons why people think the way they do. I may disagree with them, and I'll be honest, I will disagree with Nick quite a lot on this, but I want to know why, rather than just attacking the actual points and go, well, this can't be true because you're an idiot, or this can't be true because you're a flat earther. I want to know why, and try and work that through. So I've already said your name, but do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I am Nicodemus Kane. I have my own little YouTube channel. I started out as a gamer, trying to make my fame and fortune about talking about video games, and about four or 5 years ago, I got pummeled with the flat Earth to the point to where I had to stop and really question my life, and it led me to the Father. It led me to Yahweh, God. And from there, I became, I don't want to put this, I became a seeker of the truth. I became a seeker of something other than what I personally think is the lies of the world, of the massive deceptions that have that we are drowning in. Because everything I see and everything that they have told us don't seem to correspond anymore. And I don't know. Firstly, I don't know why that is, and secondly, I want to know why nothing makes sense anymore. Because everything I was taught, the whole, everything is what we say it is. Trust the government, trust the media. The Earth is round. We went to space. Yada yada yada. Everything like that. It just doesn't seem to fit, and from there, I pretty much stopped trying to be a gaming channel, and I just basically started becoming, trying to find the truth. Started preaching the Word of God, um, and that has kind of brought me to this point, which surprised the heck out of me. Today is definitely a flat Earth day because not only have I started talking to you, but there was another person that I ran into that watches my videos that he used the flat Earth sun and moon calculator map. I don't remember exactly what it's called, and it's an app on a phone, and it helps you find other flat earthers. And he just found me today. He said, "You live like 30 minutes from me. We need to meet up." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." And then you know we started talking, and so now I'm like, it's a little weird. It's a little weird because I've never thought that I would get to this point where I would be talking about this kind of stuff like this. So, anyways,
Yeah, I mean, the way that we met is obviously was through Facebook and doing the different posting on Facebook. I just generally threw out a post asking if people wanted to get in contact so that they could come onto the show to just have a discussion. And lucky enough, Nick was able to respond, and he said he was interested, and very very quickly well, at least from my point of view, I think we kind of fell into I don't want to say mutual respect, but at least a mutual understanding, because we were able to talk quite easily and quite quickly, and able to set this up quite quickly. So it was interesting, and obviously most people that have known on my channel, I've talked to a flat earther. I used to actually be I used to work with one, so let me just leave it as that. So, and we used to have lots of discussions, but those discussions always turned into, well, a proper dumpster fire. I'll be honest with that one. I think that was because it was a little bit too raw with somebody that you necessarily know. So I would just want to try and rather than me dictating how this is going to go, I'd rather actually give you the channel, so to speak, so that if you have any sort of questions for me, or if you want to try and explain the whys and the hows you feel the way that you do at the moment, and we'll try and go one point at a time and see where we go from there.
Well, the one thing I try to do more than anything else when I talk to people, and I haven't talked to very many online, but I have talked to people out in the world. We know the same things. We know where we came from. We know what the education did to us. Or the education system did to us. We know that they taught us that the earth is round, that there's this thing called gravity that holds us to the ground, that there is a moon that exists in the world that we landed on, that stars are out there. They're, little specks of light. The fact that we can see them is because they're gigantic, 20 million times bigger than anything we could ever comprehend, but they're millions and millions of miles away. And that the planets are these, balls of dust or gas or whatever the heck they say they are that are rolling around us at a certain thing and all that stuff. And we were all there. I grew up in Florida. I live in America for anybody that doesn't know. But I grew up in Florida, South Florida. And when you live in Florida, there are two things that happen every year. The first thing is you have an astronaut that comes to your school, goes class by class and talks to everybody. And you go outside every single time they launch a shuttle. I am 44. So I was a teenager, preteen through the space shuttle years. So we got to see every single launch. We would go outside, we'd watch it take off, we'd watch it do its thing, the whole deal. But that was just part of my life. I was the space kid. I was always the space kid. I always loved space. I love the movies. I love the whole concept of it. You can see in the background, that's my whatever the heck it is. I can't even think of what the name of it is. Star Wars. Oh God, I feel like such a noob now. I can't think of the name of it.
It looks like looks like the Emperor's ship. They're the
Yeah.
destroyer.
Yeah, the Star Destroyer. Why could I not think of that? That's so bad. You get to this age and you're just like, everything starts leaving you, and you're just like, But I was the space kid, and I'm still the space kid. I love the story of it. I see that we're told the lie, but that doesn't mean that I can't still enjoy the story. So we're coming from the same place where, you can tell me all the stuff about, gravity is this, or, the clouds are this, or the sky is this, the stars are this. I know it. I've been there. I was there. I was there 100%. But now I see it from a different perspective. And when I talk to people, coming back around to where I was, when I talk to people, the first thing I ask is, what would you have to say to me to get me to come back? Because I can't show you proofs. It's not. I can point you to videos of the guys that sent up the weather balloon to 180,000 feet where it looks completely flat all the way around. I can send you to the videos where, like up on the space station, I can send you the videos where it just looks like it's not right, with the women that have the hairspray hairdos, and the one videos where they cut off right at the end where everybody seems to magically fall back down to the ground and right before it gets cut off, where the guys are dropping things in space where they look like they're on wire harnesses. I can send you to all that stuff.
I've seen most of it.
Yeah. So, but that's going to be on a personal level for somebody to be able to look at and have it break them down, break that cognitive dissonance down. Somebody said a long time ago, not a long time ago, but at the beginning of all this, that NASA is on a budget. NASA gets money. They get 50 something million dollars a day from from us, in order to do this stuff. And they have to put out the best product they can. So, of course, they're going to put out all the pretty pictures, all the amazing things that they do to make themselves look as good as possible. Even if they've never went out to space at all, they got to put this stuff out because they have to meet that budget.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, though, the stuff they put out is so shoddy, and it just doesn't look right or real anymore. You know, it goes back to, you know, they show the videos of the moon landing, you know, and they where you speed it up and you can definitely see that these guys are they're just walking out there on these harnesses, you know, whether people want to believe it or not, it's what it looks like. It's not what it is, it's what it looks like. That's the disconnect. That's the why of it all. There's other things other than that, but it started with the lie, and then it becomes, okay, so what is it? What's going on here? Why is this happening the way that it is? But I always say, well, how do you bring me back? You know, what can you have to bring me back to that point to where I can somehow magically slough off all of these videos of these things that I've seen, other than saying, you know, well, these people are just trying to trick me with their videos in order to, you know, make me believe in something. And it's like, okay, but there's still things that I've done in my life that don't match up either.
Sure.
So I don't, you know, I feel like I'm in therapy.
No.
That's what it feels. I feel like I'm in therapy. I'm like, you know, hi, I'm Nico.
No, we're definitely not doing anything like that whatsoever. I suppose if your question is what can I do to bring you back, so to speak, I suppose I would have to actually ask a question to you first before I could actually answer that. Is, if you're certain, why would you want to come back?
Probably because that's the only way I can get you to see my side. Because if you were to say, you know, you have this kind of evidence,
Mm-hmm.
then I could turn around and say, well, on the flip side of that, I have this. Why does this not match this? Because I'm not trying to prove to you that the earth is flat. I'm trying to prove to you more than anything else that there is a lie. There's something going on there other than flat earth. And I don't, it doesn't have to be flat. It's just not what they say it is. The biggest problem, the problem that a lot of people bring up, is the size. What is it? 24,000 miles across is what it is, or something. I don't remember exactly what it is. But the curve, I was just talking to my dad about this. He came over a couple weeks ago, and we have a flat earth map on our wall in our living room. And I just kind of started talking about it, and he doesn't really think I'm crazy, but he kind of thinks I'm crazy. But I was telling him, I said, you know, in order to make that ball, you know, you've got the calculation where it starts curving down. You know, it's that 8 inches per mile squared thing.
Well, that's technically for a parabola, but yeah, it's
Well,
not for a circle. It's for a parabola.
Okay. Well, okay. So what's the calculation for a ball, for a globe? What's the calculation for our globe?
As I said to you at the beginning, I'm not a scientist, so I don't actually know what the thing is. But when people normally say the 8 miles per meter squared or whatever it is,
squared.
Yeah, it's generally talking about a parabola. So it's generally talking about a half circle. So you know when you have your older your half compasses or your half protractors where it was like that, that's a parabola. So it's talking about how that would be, and obviously that doesn't make a circle.
But that still have a circle, though, right?
Yes, but half a circle isn't measuring the full circle. So
Mm.
if I was to do half a circle of, say, a crescent moon, that's
Mhm.
not the whole of the moon.
Okay, so then where is the cutoff for the circle? Is it a half a circle? Is it like 45% of a circle? Is it 30 something percent of a circle? Because sooner or later that circle has to come back around. Now, if you can calculate this much of a parabola on one side, whatever you said,
Sure.
then it's got to be the same on the other side. So why is it different if it's half of a circle? Why would this calculation be any different than the bottom calculation? Why does it have to be that the whole circle has to equal one set calculation?
Because it's trying to say, for instance, if you're doing 1.1 plus 1.1, you can say, well, that's 2, because you could round it down to 2,
Mm-hmm.
which you could say is the parabola version of doing it. Where if you actually have 1 plus 1, that does equal 2. That
Mm-hmm.
is the correct answer. You're not rounding up, you're not rounding down.
Right.
And that's the difference. It's to do with the actual accuracy of the measurements.
I see, but again, you're still just counting it's the curve of that. So whether the middle point of that curve is either above the equator or below the equator, where is it at? And what's that calculation for the Earth? Because Google and NASA say the closest thing I think it's something like 7.72 something. There's some big calculation thing, algebra stuff. I failed algebra. I don't know what the heck it is, but
Sure.
when you Google it, they say 8 inches per mile squared. So they're telling us that's what it is.
I mean, that's the easy way of doing it for a
It's the
short
easy way.
distance,
Yeah,
but it's for a short distance. Like if
yeah.
you're doing something for 10 miles or to 100 miles, you'll probably use the parabola version of doing it
Mhm.
because it's accurate enough. But if you're measuring the whole of the planet or trying to do half of the planet, then it's not accurate enough. It will not be accurate enough because, as I said, if you do 1.1 plus 1.1 plus 1.1 plus 1.1 all the way up to
It adds
doing a
up. Yeah.
10, you're well off then by a factor of 10 because of the
Yeah.
point ones on it. Where if it's just a singular straight 1, then you're perfect on it again.
Mm.
And that's the difference.
And I understood that when I started going into it because it was a slow process for me because there were times I would be like, well, I'm 30% sure that it might be flat, might
Hmm.
be, I'm
Sure, sure.
40% sure, and as it kept going, I was, well, we're getting there, but it's still, even for the short distances, for
Hmm.
like 5 miles, 10
Hmm.
miles, it doesn't make the sense that they want it to make, that they tell us that it should make.
Okay.
Um, perfect. There's a video out there. Again, I'd have to tell you to go watch one where it was a guy that took his camera. It was a frozen lake.
Hmm.
Took his camera, put it on the ice of the frozen lake, and
Yeah,
had his wife on the other side at 5 miles, 10 miles, whatever it was,
sure.
put their light down, and there should be a drop. I mean, even if it's that minuscule drop, there should be a drop. I just saw a commercial the other day I thought was hilarious. Um, I don't remember where I saw it. I was in somebody's house, but it was they were talking about, it was a flashlight. This is what it was.
Sure.
You can see this flashlight from 10 miles away. It's that kind of thing. And I was looking at it and I said, is somebody standing on the shore of the other side of a lake flashing a flashlight, and they're talking about seeing it from 10 miles away. Let me do that math real quick for a second. I said, I can't remember what it was, like 6 feet or something. I don't remember exactly what it was. It it's the calculations, and you've got guys, they're using the actual calculations of this parabola thing
Sure.
that are going out there with infrared cameras now and seeing things from like 50, 60, 70 miles away.
Yeah. But
And
they were at a
that's,
lower distance.
well, they were
They were at a lower
they were at a
elevation.
higher altitude is what it was. There's
Yeah.
some Russian guy in a plane with a he's saying, well, I'm 30 something thousand feet up and I can see the very tip of the mountain that's 200 feet, or 200 miles away. that we shouldn't be able to see, because at 200 miles with the calculations, this thing should be however many miles below the. And it's those little things, and again, with things that I've done in my life,
Sure.
which we can we can get to as we go, but it's those kind of things that I'm like, okay, why won't the scientists come out and at least talk about this?
For me, for instance, with what you said, for instance, using the measurement of putting the light on the floor, the camera on the floor, and
Mm-hmm.
trying to get the light from the opposite side. I don't know if the light was on the floor. I can't remember the actual video myself, to be honest with you. I can't remember if the light was on the floor, if it was at 6 feet high or whatnot. But one of the main reasons why you wouldn't be able to see any sort of drop on a frozen lake is because it's frozen. Now, that doesn't mean, oh, well, because it's become solid, that makes it different. That's not what I'm meaning. When you have a frozen pond yourself, or you've gone near a very cold morning and the sun starts to heat things up,
Mm-hmm.
you can
Right.
see water vapor coming up, can't you?
Okay.
So when you actually have anything that's frozen, you automatically have energy that's being released from that frozen water, because vapor
Mhm.
will escape from that. Because as long as it's not absolute zero, it's always going to lose some of its density, some of its mass, and it does that by escaping, going into water vapor. So
Mhm.
with that water vapor that's there, it refracts the light. So as you're recording it, obviously the digital light beams are actually going into the camera and actually trying to do that. So it's actually being refracted as it's going over. That's the reason why when you have a foggy or cloudy day, you can't see as far, because of the water vapor is causing more refraction over that water surface. That's why when you do sort of measurements, you want to do it on a clearest day as possible, but you don't want it too hot, because then you have the opposite, where the water starts to get rid of its water vapor, and that causes more refraction.
Mm. And that is that's similar to the mirage.
Similar.
I don't want to say excuse, but it's what they say. Well, when they talk about, you're seeing Chicago across Lake Erie and it's just a mirage. Um, I've seen Chicago across Lake Erie. If it was a mirage, it was a mirage. I don't know. I know that
Sure.
there is some kind of refraction, some kind of something that happens on the edges that makes things magnified. I know that. Whether that's pulling things up over the curve, now that I don't know. Because again, we're talking about things that, you know, past 20, 30, 40 miles.
Sure.
How much further, can you see over that? And it's a lot of that also comes down to, why can't they just point one of these big ass telescopes down? Why can't they just go ahead and do it for us so that they can prove it? At this point, everybody says, well, you got to go up in space to be able to prove this stuff. But I mean, who can you trust if you can't trust anybody going up into space? I'm not believing William Shatner whenever he's going up there saying, I'm sorry, the man's a paid actor. What do you want? I'm not believing that. I'm not going to believe anybody from NASA when they tell me, because $50 million a day buys a lot of silence. I actually,
No, I'm completely with you on that one. Yeah,
I had,
those types of things can be done that way. I can understand how you'd be skeptical about
hmm,
something like that, but
but yeah, the refraction thing. I mean, I get that. I understand that, but it's still doesn't explain the thing. It's not. It can't always be pulling it over the curve to be able to see. Sooner or later, somebody has
no,
to
it
stop
doesn't.
and understand, and kind of say, well, whenever we take one of these Nikon P1000s or whatever they are, and you zoom out into a ship, way out in the middle of nowhere, and you can still see water past the ship, is that the water vapor pulling the water up over the curb behind the ship? Where, because I don't know how far out those ships are. I don't know what that distance is. I can't say for certain. I know when I was growing up in Florida, we live we lived on Lake Okeechobee. You can look that up. It's what is it? I can't remember exactly how big it is. Something like 20, 25 miles. I don't know. When you go to Okeechobee itself, the city of Okeechobee, and stand on the pier at Okeechobee, you can look across. And I never questioned this when I was a kid. Never, never, ever, ever. But you could see the other pier on the other side in Immokalee. That's what everybody always said it was. There's a city called Immokalee out there, and you could see the lights. They had one of those view things on the Okeechobee Pier where you put the quarter in and you can view out and you can see it. And Lake Okeechobee, depending on what season it was either between 20 feet deep or it was 10 feet deep. And when that lake is low, you can see everything. Just about. You could almost see, if it wasn't covered for trees, you could see the town of Clewiston, where I used to live, which is on the dead other side of the map. And it's those things that when people started saying, well, if you look and you can see lights from 10, 20 miles away, I started thinking, oh wait, that's what we used to do all the time. Similar to Fort Myers Beach is in Florida. It's on the west coast of Florida, faces out into the Gulf of Mexico. What is it? It's 2.5 miles away from Fort Myers Beach. From the pier is Sanibel Island. On Fort Myers Beach Pier, there are those same viewfinders that you can do. You can look over. You see Sanibel Island Beach. 2 miles, that's nothing. You're up, maybe 20, 30 feet on this pier. I'm not going to say that's, anything big. But when you look to the right of that, you can look way out and see another island called Pine. It's a Pine or Pike Island. That's what it was. 6 miles, 7 miles away. And they have boat docks. And you can see the people getting out on the boat docks. You can see up onto the land of that. You can see around the island. And this was stuff that I saw. That when I was a kid. And it didn't register until somebody else pointed that out. And I kind of stopped and I said, that's a thing. That's, why is this a thing? Why, how is it now that, people are seeing this? When before,
for me, that would have to be with the point of elevation. Now, I suppose for yourself that you've actually seen the black swan for the flat Earth, have you?
Black swan,
the black swan image. So this image here. So where it says Bud Ball and the platform habitat, and you've seen this image that's considered the black swan, the defeater for the globe Earth.
I have not seen that one. No, I'm sure I've seen other ones, but I have not seen that one. There's a lot of things I haven't seen. I mean, you can only spend so much time on the internet.
No, completely and utterly agree with you. There are much more important things to do than sometimes doing stuff like this. I completely agree with you.
Right.
But if you have a look at the platforms, so you can see that this platform here is starting to be distorted. So that should not be as bent as it is, as it's can you see my mouse cursor?
Yes, I can see your mouse. Yes.
Right. Okay. So as you can see there, that on that corner bit there, that's starting to become distorted. That's supposed to be a metal ladder, basically. It's a crane. So why is it starting to almost look like it's curving?
It could be heat vapor coming off the water. I can agree with that.
Yeah. And so what does that? What would that cause?
It looks like it's causing the image to distort. I can't tell if it's causing the image to rise or lower. It's definitely distorting the image. I can see that much. If it is causing it to rise, that's fine. So is it causing the water line way behind the one on the left to be above the struts of the one on the left? Is that what's causing the water line to be behind that?
That's how it's causing the mirage. So as you said before, because it's a refraction, it makes it look like the water level is rising. So when it's a dry day and you can see the tar being very hot and giving off vapor, it makes it look like there's water all over the surface and makes it look like it's a flat plane, even if there's bumps in the road. Because if you can see it, the vapor from the tar makes it look like there's a a straighter line because it's rising everything up to eye level. Where this is doing something very similar because the light that's going to your eyeball is making it actually be at a particular level. That's why it's refraction, why it causes a mirage. Because if I go to this one, why is that so far down there now? It's the same picture, just on a different day.
Are we absolutely certain that's the same picture on a different day?
Do you think it's the same picture?
I think that it looks like it was taken in a very similar place, but I can't tell for certain if it was the same exact picture taken on a different day.
Let me rephrase it then. Maybe it's not exactly the same picture, but it's taken at the same place and it's taken at a different time. So it's roughly at the same place with the same amount of zoom with the right camera at roughly the same elevation.
But are you sure it's taken at the same place?
Because of the angle of the picture, I'm pretty certain of how the angle almost matches up identically to that picture.
Well, again, it's a matter of what we can and can't believe against
Sure, but
what,
I'm not
what
asking
we're
you
told.
to believe.
Yeah, I know, I understand, and that's why I'm questioning that.
I
Because
agree.
that's the questions that we need to ask: is are we absolutely certain what we're seeing is what we were told about the pictures? Because
Now, I don't want to put you on the spot. I don't want to put you on the spot. But why is this one, in your opinion? Obviously, we have no idea. I'm not a scientist. You're not a scientist. Nobody in this goddamn room's a scientist that's going to be able to explain this fully.
right.
But in your opinion, why is that one so far lower down now? But also, as well, the image, and as we said before, the cranes are no longer distorted to compare to how the original picture was.
Well, again, it could be taken in a different place. It could be taken with a different lens. It could be taken with a different what's the it's not focal length. What is it called? My dad was a photographer.
Sure.
I picked some of it up from him. I know that if you take a certain lens and if you move it out, you can make things in the foreground and the background move however the heck you want. That just to me is you want my explanation for it. It's that could be any number of situations that would make that look different. It's very even possible that the first picture was taken on the water. We don't know. We can't trust everything. We can trust some things, but this kind of stuff. And again, that's why I say, can you trust the people that show us the videos of the guy with the light on the thing, other than me seeing that there's one guy on the one side of the lake that has he's got his hand held and he's showing himself putting the camera down, and then he has the picture of his wife on the other side putting the light down. I mean, can you trust that? We don't know. This is the whole flat earth thing is about what we can believe and what we can't believe. And
no, I completely agree. It is about the belief and understanding of the belief. The thing that I'd want to point out is that this is generally, without the writing that's put on here, this picture is normally put out as evidence of the globe being busted, so to speak.
no.
But if your father, as you said, has done bits of photography, as you said, you probably picked up a little bit. If we're talking about how they picked up, why is there a massive line of how the water seems to change? Now, it looks, if you wanted to be a little bit melodramatic, it looks like the water is up onto the lens and then it flattens out, rather than it actually just being flat from all the way from the bottom.
And this is why I don't trust every little picture that comes to me. This is why I don't trust, and I don't think I don't put out stuff like this. I will put out NASA images to show people that it doesn't look right. This kind of stuff I can't prove. I can't prove or deny.
Agree.
Yeah,
I completely agree. I'm not going to be able to prove it either. I don't want to talk over or anything else like that. I'm just saying, as I said to you before off stream before we come live, I'm not going to prove anything necessarily.
Oh, yeah. I'm not here to change anybody's mind.
so to speak. It's just when we talk about this, and we can see the mirage artifacts, so the refraction artifacts in here, that we can see is the image, regardless of if the elevation's been distorted,
Right.
what you're actually taking a picture of or a video of is obviously distorted by how the actual image comes out. So let's not say that it's higher or lower. Let's focus on the idea of why is that image so bent, if you want to put it that way,
It's
and why is that one not?
probably because the weather. Probably because there just wasn't that much moisture in the air. Probably not enough heat. It was probably a million things. But that doesn't mean that the water vapor in the air is pulling the image of that over the water. At least to me.
Okay, so what do you think would be the explanation for why that's changed so much? Because I can't really do a blink test on this one, but if we look where the line is, where this water line is, right? And we see that over that line, there's another, we can see the other oil rig or whatever. We can see the other rig over the back, right, where the water line is. If we go back to the other picture, I bet you that if I could leave my mouse there, I bet you that's where the distortion line is, where we see on the other picture.
It's possible.
It's a little bit higher, but that's where that distortion line is. I just find that a little bit, let's say, coincidental.
Well, it's also when you look at the videos of the guys that will zoom in on the boats out on the water,
Sure.
you get that same kind of line in the front, because if you look at this one right now where the right platform is, there's this little tiny thing, there's like a, I don't know what you want to call it.
It looks like a two-person boat.
Yeah, well, I'm not talking about that. I was actually talking about the platform itself. Okay. But there's a little bit of that cut off on the other one too. But when they zoom in with the cameras, you get that same kind of effect. Is that it's like the water line will come to a point and then you can start seeing what's behind it. I don't know if that makes any sense at all. I know that I've seen it, and I've seen the water line. I've seen that happen, and I don't know exactly how the perspective of it works. You know, there was something I heard a while back, and I haven't really heard it since. There could, not only is there a distortion in the water vapor that causes things to come up and grow, there could also be something in it that causes things to push down as well. So I don't know what exactly you can do with that, because there's just a lot that we don't know. And you know, we've been taught many things about it, but that doesn't mean that any of it's true. I need to zoom you up so I can see what you're doing here. There we go. No, it's better. I had it down on the little screen, and I'm like, I'm fighting to see it, and I'm like, why am I doing this, man? This is technology. Come on, dude, use it.
The reason why I brought this picture up is because I felt that you brought up a really good point. As in, this picture is actually taken as a snapshot from an actual person that did this as a video. So they saw that there was 3 oil tankers that were traveling in the same boat path, and they were able to zoom in. They took a couple of pictures. They were able to show this. So my question to you is, as is, we can't really see sort of any distortion on any of the boats, so to speak. So can you see the orange line there, but you can't see the orange line there? And why can you not even see the bow of the boat there?
That I can't tell you, because I've still seen the videos of this where you will see when they zoom in on one, it'll start out like the one on the right, and then it'll slowly become the one on the left, and then eventually it'll zoom right into the one in the middle. There's something about the water line that is somehow either perspective of the camera or something else. It's somehow the water line, like the thing is here, and the water line will slowly go down until you can see it. I've seen that in the videos. I can't understand it. I don't understand it.
Okay,
But
I've seen similar videos to what
Mhm.
you've done because I like to try and do a little bit of research before
Right.
I do things like this. Like yourself, I don't want to go to directly to the debunking sources or whatever. I like to try and do things for myself from the own sources. I have never seen any video of where you actually have a boat that's there that has been zoomed into after that's been there. So when it's already disappeared a bit of it. Now, I've seen it when you can't see a boat, and then you zoom in and you can see the boat look like this.
Hmm.
But I've never seen it when you've zoomed into a boat when it's already there and it end up being like that. I've never seen that.
I wish I could remember where those videos are. I really do. I So many of those videos are so gone now, and I'm sure people are probably going to say, "Oh, he's lying now. He doesn't know anything he's talking about." No, I know I've seen him though, and it's to go with what you were saying before. Who's saying that there isn't some kind of a refraction that's either pushing up or pulling down on the waves in front of it?
I
Even
mean, you could have something like looming or something like that.
yeah, I'm
Um,
I understand what you're saying here. I get it. I've seen enough of these to know that maybe there's something going on there, but that by itself for me can't prove the curve because it still doesn't follow the calculation. It still doesn't follow that curve whenever you're talking about 5 miles, 10 miles. Why is it only past this many amount of miles that we actually start seeing it?
well, the thing is with Earth, because we have an atmosphere, we don't actually have let's say we don't actually have a geo horizon. We have an apparent horizon. The reason why we say that we don't have a geo horizon is because we're not on the moon. We have
Mhm.
an atmosphere. So because we have an atmosphere, the actual horizon moves because of the atmosphere. So that's why we have an apparent apparent horizon because it changes with the atmosphere. If you have a clear day, you normally can see quite a distance normally without any sort of distortion, normally without any sort of weirdness that ends up going on. Where if it's a cloudy day, even if it's just clouds above, that it doesn't really go very well because there's more water vapor in the air, so you can't see as far. It's same thing with fog, same thing if the light's not too good, so on and so forth. The main problem with when we talk about can we calculate this, can we calculate that, it all depends on what calculations you're using. So if you're using the parabola one, which is great for short distances for not necessarily being overly accurate, but it sounds like what you want to do is you want to be overly accurate. You want to measure it. So I'm not 100% sure, like with Jeranism, when he was doing his own version of the light over the lake,
Mhm.
where he was so 100% certain that he was going to be able to get this light to be where it's supposed to be if it was flat. And he did the experiment while he was actually being filmed, so to speak, because he was doing the Netflix
Is this from the
documentary.
movie? Is
And
this from the Netflix thing?
it is, yeah. But
Yeah.
it's not been cut. That's the thing though. It's not been cut.
Are you
And
sure?
the experiment, yeah. Jeronism even come out and kind of half admitted it and then changed
Right.
his mind. And so but
Oh,
the point that I'm trying to make is that he did the experiment himself. He
right.
said that this is what we would expect on a flat earth. He didn't get what he expected on a flat earth. So he asked Enrique to put the light above his head, which would have been what you would have expected on a globe Earth because of the drop. And the light was visible as soon as he asked Enrique to do that.
Mm.
And then you get, the famous, "That's interesting"
Right.
quotation. But
Right.
that's an actual experiment that's actually been done by Jeranism, the same as what was done by Bob Nodell about doing the rotation that's been measured. and that was from him. He was saying that, well, you can't put that in the documentary and so on and so forth. But when we say that these things have been measured, I'm not saying I've measured it. I'm not going to go out of my way and try and lie to anybody and say, yeah, no, I've definitely done it. I know it for certain. But even when you have people like yourself that disagree with other people and how they've done the measurements, when they've done it themselves, you normally don't hear from them about them proving the flat Earth. It's either an excuse or we didn't do it right. And for me, if I'm a skeptic, I would find that quite skeptical that the people that I'm not trusting, but is thinking that are at the forefront of trying to prove flat Earth or prove globe skepticism, when they do their own research and do their own experiments, they kind of don't really show the results for that, or they discredit themselves after they've done it. I find that interesting.
That brings up a good point about trusting who is and isn't doing the experiments, because nobody makes any money telling the truth.
Oh, I don't know. I think if somebody like Jeranism or Bob Nodell or whoever was able to actually prove, by without a shadow of a doubt, with using their own experimentations and documenting it, that the Earth is flat, they would be on every single talk show. They would be asked to go on to every single scientific notion and every single the Peace Prize themselves. They would go and get that they would literally be like Fields medals and so on and so forth. That they would be at the forefront and pinnacle of science.
I wasn't really talking about that. I was talking about the money they make before the fact, that they still are pulling pretty decent paychecks for talking about flat Earth. It's kind of like it's the Alex Jones syndrome. You don't make $1 million by telling the truth. You just don't do it. It's not one of those things that just happens. You tell the truth, they're going to shut you down. It is what it is. There's a lot of people out there that when you really look at it, and I don't want to start throwing names, because there's so many guys out right now that are throwing names.
Sure.
So many truthers right now that are throwing names that it's just becoming a battle. But you don't get to have your channel monetized. You don't get to have the sponsors or the whatever it is to be able to pull in the hundreds of thousands of dollars that these guys are pulling. That they want to say, oh, we're poor, we're demonetized, we're this, we're that. It's like, no, you're not, man. You're going out there buying how much did he say that laser gyroscope
20,000, I think.
Yeah. Am I going out buying a $20,000 thing? No, I'm poor, I'm broke. I have 380 something subscribers on my channel. I get an average view of 10 per video. All right, I try to tell the truth.
Sure.
As much as I can, but I'm not monetized, and I'm not just going to say, oh, that's just because of me, because I'm so, there's other guys out there that they've gone out past the point of trying to muffle their voices, and when they did, their channels got hit. So I don't trust the Globe Busters guys. They have a certain amount that I can trust, and see, but it's called controlled opposition for a reason. That's exactly what it is. And it's the trust game. It's all it is.
I mean, I kind of get where you're going. I kind of get that. I was just, the only thing that I would push back on that one is to kind of say, well, do you think that all of these prominent people that have gone in to argue for flat Earth or for globe skepticism, do you think that the ones that have tried to do experiments to prove it, do you think that? I don't want you to drop any names, and I'm not trying to try and start any beef or anything else like that, or whatever. But do you think that they've tried to, I don't know, try to make money off of it, or do you think that they actually believe what they say that they believe it? Because I'll drop a name. I don't think Mark Sargent believes in flat Earth. I don't think he does. I think he does it purely as a money-making gimmick. He's a very smart man. He knows about games. He knows about how to market himself and so on and so forth. But I don't think people like Bob Nodell do it for that reason. I think that he genuinely believes in it. Same as Jeranism and others like that. Witzer gets it, and so on and so forth.
Mark Sargent is definitely not what I would call a trusted voice.
Sure.
He was one of the ones that pulled me in, but then I really started listening to the things he said, and I was like, yeah, this sounds like something different now. And then he started doing commercials where he was, the what was it, the one Australian commercial where he was like, you could you don't have to be smart to do something or whatever, it's
Yeah.
and I believe in flat earth or something like that. But there are a lot of guys
quite well for that though.
Yeah, well, there were a lot of guys, especially early on, that came in and they just jumped on it. It's like immediately it was like flat Earth channel, and then there were T-shirts, and then there were coffee mugs, and buy this, buy that, buy this, and everybody was sponsored, and everybody was making money and doing this and doing that, and it wasn't those are the guys that I wouldn't trust. You just can't trust it. I mean, you can take the whole thing about the controlled opposition thing is that they give you 90% truth, but then they give you that 10% that will throw you for a loop just enough that the media will latch onto it and say, look at these kooks. Look at these nut jobs right here. It's the Alex Jones syndrome. It's like I said, Alex Jones will tell you all day about, all these documents and conspiracies and things that have been out there for years and years and years. And these things are true. You can go look at them and find them, the CIA documents and all these things. But then it's the sitting in the studio with the tinfoil hat saying that the frogs are being turned gay that turns you off. That's the controlled opposition part of it. So ever since the very beginning, guys have been talking about shills in the flat earth movement. I'm not part of any movements or anything. I'm just believing what I'm believing. So I'm separating myself from any kind of flat earth, anybody's. I'm not in any groups. I'm not in anything. Again, today was the first time I ever had somebody ask me if I wanted to come meet them, and even then my wife told me to be skeptical of it. But
that's understandable.
But
that's definitely understandable.
Yeah. So, but there's, ever since the very beginning, people have said there are people in this movement, in the community, that are just there to make money. They're just there to make people look stupid. They're trolls. Stay away from them. And I've tried to find the right ways, the right ways to go. The biggest one that I held on to was Rob Skiba, because he was the one that introduced me into the Bible, about how it connects to flat earth and about all the other things that are happening in the world right now. It's amazing how the Bible predicted so much of whatever. But he's the guy that I found, and there's been people that have said, oh, he's a shill too, he made his money, and I understand that absolutely. But he's also been that man of God. And for me, that's where I kind of have to, take that with that grain of salt, know that he's coming from a certain place. I have to be able to read it in the book. I have to be able to see it with my own eyes. And it all kind of wraps into that, that pretty picture for me. That's what, again, like I said, it took me a good 3 years to come around to it. And then when I found somebody like Rob Skiba, and who else was it? Oh man, there was somebody else. He got taken off of YouTube. Who was it? But he was doing it too. And they both brought me to that point to where I found God and I was saved. And that's where I have to go from here. That's the religion aspect, if you want to start talking about that.
No. I don't actually want to talk about the religion side of things at all. People's beliefs are absolutely fine, and that's absolutely up to them and what they believe. I do not think that flat earth leads you to God, but I do think that it reinforces your belief in God. So if you believe that the Bible talks about flat Earth, which for most of the churches in most of the world and most of the people that are Christians don't have the same opinion as you, and that's fine. It's just a case of, for me, I don't think that you need flat Earth to believe in God. If you want to use it as a justification, that's fine. But if you want to believe in God, you don't need flat Earth to believe in God.
Well, I don't need flat Earth to believe in God. I believe in God now. I believe that He is my holy Savior. He is the one that has taken me to this point. He used flat Earth and exposing lies to be able to let me find the truth.
Sure.
That's where I come from. Is I use flat Earth to a point. You know, when I'm talking to people, when I'm doing my videos and things like that, I say, you know, all it takes is that one spark.
Sure.
That's the reason why I was talking to the guy on the Facebook thing. I said, all it takes is that one thing to change somebody's mind. And if they take that and go look in the book, if they go look at Enoch, if they go look at Jasher, if they go look at anything else and it brings them back around to God, that's where it is right there. And from that point, they can take flat Earth and do whatever they want to with it. But for me, that was the spark.
Sure, no, I completely not get where you're going with that. That was the spark that led you down the pathway that you're now on. And I completely agree with you that it only takes one spark to be able to lead people to where they need to go. As the old saying is, the straw that broke the camel's back. It's not the heaviness that does it. It's just that one extra piece that takes you too far, that you just makes you go tumbling down, so to speak. The Alice hole, if you want to do it that way. But the thing that I probably would want to stress is with the idea of flat Earth. And again, believe what you want to believe. I have no issue with that whatsoever. It's just, for me, if I may again, because I'm going to share something else, another picture.
Go for it.
But when you have something like this that was from Lake Pontchartrain.
Oh yeah, this one. Yeah.
Yes, but as you can see how the actual horizon and vanishing point actually is, and it's on a clear day as well, and you can see where the horizon is, and it's been heavily marked out. I don't see how you can, and you know it's not edited because it was done from a video and it was a screenshot from a video as well. So it hadn't been edited on the fly or anything else like that. It's only been edited to be able to put the text in and show you where the vanishing points are and the lines are. And if you don't think, well, the lines are equal to where they should be, that's the reason why you can see it just bending over the back over there. Now, that's not to try and say, oh, well, this definitely proves a globe. I just find it very hard for somebody that believes that it's flat without any curvature would be able to explain this without adding, well, maybe there's a little bit of curvature, but it's still flat, which is why some people say it's a plate. And I'm not saying you do, but that type of a thing to encompass a curve when you're looking over things.
Well, that one has always been weird to me. Just because I've seen other pictures of that. And I wish I had saved those. I really do. I wish
Sure,
I'd
I've obviously come a little bit more prepared because I did say it was only a discussion, but
no,
it's absolutely fine.
But things like this, where, I mean, you say that it came from a video.
Yeah, Soundly's, believe it or not. Soundly's videos. He actually still has it on his YouTube channel.
I've seen pictures of that, though, where those posts, whatever you want to call them, the columns, whatever, they're more spaced out than that. They're not that close together where it looks like they come together at the end. Now, I've seen pictures where they curve at the end, where they're, but they're not spaced, or they're not spaced so close together like that. So I have big problems with every image of this that I see, because I wonder why every picture of it looks different.
Okay, no, that's completely not fair enough.
Yeah, it comes down to the trust game. It comes down to what is going on there that I have to go see it for myself. That's the one thing, and I can't, I don't have the funds or the means I would love to go see these things for myself. I absolutely would, because if I could prove it for myself, I would totally do it.
So this is from the LIGO. I'd call it a base. It's not actually base. It's basically measuring gravitational waves from out in the galaxy, and it's how we found out about black holes and so on and so forth. So this is actually coming out of its way to talk about the engineering. It's the actual LIGO aspect itself that you can actually go into and find out the engineering that goes with it as well. But because the arms are so long, the actual curvature of the Earth actually had to be a factor in how it was constructed because of how long it was. So because the gravitational waves have the arms actually have and they have something that shoots to the end of the arms and shoots back to be able to measure how the gravitational waves work. Again, I'm not a scientist. If you're not 100% sure, you can work this out and so on and so forth. But because of how that has to be done, it has to be a completely and utterly straight run, a straight line of how it goes in and comes back to do its measurements. That had to be completely straight. And because it's been engineered that way, because it's over 4 kilometers in length for each arm and going in different directions as well, it had to be engineered so it took the Earth's curvature into play. In actual fact, most bridges, especially suspension bridges, have to take into consideration the Earth's curve for where the base of a tower is to where the next tower is going to be for the suspension, so it can line up properly. So that has to be included in engineering as well. Now, I'm not just trying to throw, well, what about this? What about this? Explain this, explain that. But I'm trying to, as you said before, you wanted me to try and pull you back over to this side if you want to say that, and I'm trying. I'm trying.
Well, again, you're not gonna.
I know. I know.
Who funds this?
What do you mean? Who funds it?
Who funds it?
I'm not 100% sure actually.
If it says NASA or the people that fund the Large Hadron Collider, even remotely, it's suspicious.
No, supported by the National Science Foundation, operated by Caltech and MIT.
Okay, who are the backers of it, though? Not just supported, the people that are putting money into it. Again, this is a trust game. This is removing the shells.
But this sounds, and I don't want to be rude, but this sounds like it's a dodge. The reason why I say it's like a dodge, is not because I don't think that you're trying to be dishonest. I don't think that.
All right.
I think you're focusing on, well, who's backing this, who's backing that, rather than the point I actually made, which was that the engineering is what proves the curvature, not LIGO and not the backers, but the engineering does.
Okay, well then why is it that that is the only project that I have heard that has had to worry about the curve of the Earth? Because every other project,
because of the sensitivity of trying to measure gravitational waves from space. Even if you believe that we haven't been into space, we can still measure what's outside of our Earth's pull, if you want to put it that way. And that's what LIGO was made for. So it's made so sensitively that it needs to be engineeringly perfect on how it does its measurements, which is why it had to take everything into account.
So we've just kind of thrown off everything else. We don't really have to worry about the curve of the Earth for anything like bridges or tunnels.
I just said that we do.
But again, this is the only thing I've heard where they've said that they've actually calculated the curve of the Earth.
They do that with long bridges. They had to do that with the Golden Gate Bridge. They had to actually calculate the curvature of the Earth with Golden Gate Bridge to make sure that the two towers that were in the middle were at the same height when they were putting the rest of the bridge together, so it would meet. Because obviously they build bridges from one side to the other, so it has to be calculated absolutely perfectly and cannot be a millimeter off.
Do we know that for certain? See, it's a lie game.
Well, no, because it's documented. It's documented from the media of the time, how they've actually done it. So newspaper sources. It was documented for the Golden Gate Bridge, for instance. It was done in the schematics of the bridge. It was also done when they announced the bridge as well. So I'm not trying to, again, I'm not trying to just go,
No,
well, this,
I
and
understand.
this.
I understand. What I'm saying is, just because somebody says something doesn't mean it's real. I'm trying to crack you out of the lie.
No, I get
Not
that.
trying to disprove all this. I'm trying to, and this is something that I've had to tell other people, is that you don't have to believe a single word I say. You just have to understand that there's been a lie, a serious lie, that you have to crack yourself out of. Whether that's flat Earth, whether that's the if I start dropping names on everything, you'll definitely get this video removed.
That's fine.
But yeah, no,
But
I mean, whether it's anything that's happened in the past, you have to understand that it just doesn't add up anymore, and it's because we've been told something very specific from the day we were born, and we were told never to question it. And when we do question it, we're told all this stuff that you're kind of showing me, but that comes from somebody else.
everything that we do is going to come from something else. Because if we can't do the engineering ourselves unless we learn it, how are we going to be able to trust somebody to be able to tell us the engineering? If I go to a flat earther and go, well, can you prove the engineering because you're an engineer? And he goes, oh, yeah, I can prove it. But 99 other people go, well, no, I can prove that this is this. Who do you go for when you're just a layman?
We have to do it ourselves. We have to find a way that we can do it ourselves and not trust everything we were immediately given.
So if I was to mention something like Quartz Pendulum, which is something that we can all do if we have a big block of tower, block of flats, or a big block of building that's near us, where you can put the Quartz pendulum onto the actual building in the middle, and you can let it swing from side to side, right? So it's going straight forward by its own momentum. No mechanics, no physical pushing by anybody. You just let it go like a pendulum. I have pieces of paper underneath it, and it will draw a line. Now, with that line, it will end up slowly moving, and whether you want to believe it on this side of things or not, you can actually calculate your longitude by how that degree bends from where you put the Quartz pendulum. And that's something that you can do yourselves, that you can measure yourself.
So why isn't the chandelier in my dining room constantly swinging?
Because you haven't set it up for it to swing.
So
I don't
you
want to
have
be. You understand how a pendulum is supposed to be suspended?
yeah, but you're saying that I have to. You're saying that we can set something up like that and it'll just start swinging on its own.
No. You have to have it so it's a pendulum. The pendulum doesn't swing
So
by
you have
itself
to start to swing.
off.
Okay, so if there is even the remotest, tiniest bit of you not setting it up and doing it right, you're not, or you're, what's the word I'm looking for? You're messing with the swing of this thing, because we can't just, unless you were to magically lock it into place somehow and then let it go and see what it does. Plus you have wind. Plus you, I mean, just
inside a building.
Well, yeah, inside a building. Have you ever seen one of these things where they're dead stopped? Have you seen the video where they talk to the guy in the museum that says that there's a machine inside that swings it around and he has to be the one that has to turn it on every day?
Sure.
Okay, so wait. So because you've seen that video and you're saying that you still don't believe, you still believe in the efficacy of these things because you
How would you start a pendulum?
It's this guy says that he has to go in every day and he has to give it a little push.
Yes, because you make it a dead stop. Because when it stops, when you're not there, you don't want the pendulum to go. Does that mean that when you put the pendulum back, does that mean that you're orientating how you're measuring everything, how it goes? Or are you just starting things off like a car engine does when you turn a key?
This is very similar to the laser gyroscope that dude had in that Netflix movie. Is that there was a machine inside the parts that, if there's a machine inside the part that has to help that thing move, you can't trust it. it's like there was a video from some people that came out where they were going out into a park, and this guy had a telescope. He had this big, huge $3,000 telescope, and supposedly he was taking pictures of Jupiter and Saturn and all this other kind of stuff. And he would hit a button and it would zoom in on a thing, go right to it, and it would pull up a picture of Saturn. And they asked him, they said, "Okay, is that an actual picture of it?" He said, "No, these are from NASA."
Well,
If it's a part of
NASA buy them, then he's technically correct.
if it's a part of the machine, we can't. There's not a trust system there. If there's a machine at the top of these pendulums that are helping this thing swing,
there's no machines. There's no
but again,
mechanism whatsoever.
Did you or did you not see the video of the guy that says that there's a machine in it and that he has to help move it?
Yeah, but I'm not talking about that one. That one's the one in France, or the continuous pendulum. I'm talking about the one that you can make yourself.
Do you see the disconnect that's happening here? You're hitting cognitive dissonance, and I should have said at the very beginning that there was no way in the world I could ever break that cognitive dissonance within an hour or so. But that's what you're doing right now. Is you're not hearing what's going on. Is that you admitted there's a machine in one of these?
Yes, in the full quartz pendulum that's in Paris, the continuous one that's not actually used to measure to measure the Earth's actual longitude. That's just there as a show and a museum piece is controlled by a mechanism at the top to make it keep on going throughout the whole of the day. So once it's started, it can continuously start until it's stopped. But I was talking about an experiment that you can do yourself that is the actual full quartz pendulum, the original one, which is where you attach it to a building so that you can just have a normal pendulum with its own momentum that is after letting it go from a different height to be able to measure how the actual longitude is on the actual on a piece of paper.
In which I have to set it up in a very specific way in order for it to work.
Yes, like most experiments.
Okay. Well, I don't know how in the world they can get away with calling the one in Paris a full quartz pendulum if it's got a machine and they actually know it's a machine in it. That's something somebody should write to somebody about, because that just sounds, man, that sounds greasy, man.
Yeah, that one's not actually used to measure the longitude of the planet anymore.
Well, then why do they have it?
Because there is a representation for when it was first made and
first. But people believe it. See, that's part of the lie. Because
it's a representation of when it was first made. Because now it's a museum piece. It's like trying to say, well, why does a dinosaur need to move in a museum with animatronics? It's like, well, it's to give an interpretation and representation of how a dinosaur we think would move.
But it's all interpretation.
Well, no, it's not all with the full quartz pendulum, it's not interpretation, because we've had the experiment. We've done they've done the experiment. I'm not part of that. I'm not a scientist. But they've already done the experiment. They've been able to do it without the mechanism there. But because it's in a museum and it's now more of a show entertainment piece rather than a scientific piece, it's now gone to be able to use a mechanism so somebody doesn't have to keep on starting it all the time. That's all. But
people still believe in that.
Believe in what? What, the full quartz pendulum in Paris is doing it?
Yeah, they probably still believe that that's real, because I don't know if the people there are telling them that it's not real or not. It's a trust game.
But that doesn't take away the fact of the experiments that happened before that prove
well, if the experiment, I mean, if it's a real thing that happens, that's a real thing. I don't know. I've never done that experiment. I might even go start that now that you've said something about it, so that I can go ahead and see it. But it's like, it's the interpretation of it. It's like NASA's interpretations of everything that's out there in the world, or out there in the universe. Sorry, not in the world, in the universe. It's like the black hole pictures from several years back, where they had the article. They were talking to the woman that found it. I don't remember her name, and she said that the image they used was an interpretation of what it was, because the actual image that she had was two red dots on a screen. it's an interpretation. It's like the pictures of the globe that you get that are photoshopped because they have to be. It's
It's
not
only
my.
the 2012 one. For instance,
Actually,
the
no.
hassle.
Can I send you a picture? Can I send
Yeah,
you
of course you
something
can.
that I just found today?
You
How's
should
the
be
best way to do
if
it?
you go to the StreamYard thing itself, so the web browser where StreamYard is,
Yeah,
there should be a share button. Are you on your phone or?
I'm on my computer. I'm on my laptop.
Yeah, you should be able to see settings. So you've got mute,
Okay.
stop cam, cam mic, and then share. If you go to share, you'll be able to do that
All
after
right.
I've accepted it.
Well, let me pull it up before so you don't see all my other stuff going on in here.
You just see the window anyway, so
All right.
I don't need to see the whole screen. Just make sure that you pick the
Oh,
window that it's in.
What am I doing here? No, I actually just had this come back up today, which I thought was hilarious about the owl in the clouds. Have you seen this? Where's it at? I'm trying to find it.
Sure, no problem.
Oh no, it disappeared. Where'd it go? Come on now, this is silly. I guess I didn't.
While you're looking for that,
All
I
right.
can quickly show you this, which is from the actual person who did this, a gentleman physicist. And if you watch Fight the Flat Earth, this is kind of what he shows quite a lot. And that's basically what it is.
Today
And
we
he'll
get to
go
play
into
with Foucault's
how he
pendulum.
made it and
When
so
anyone
on and
asks me
so
why
forth
I'd want to
with
do
that.
this, I tell them, some men just want to watch the world turn.
Where did I put the sound, for God's sake? Right, sound. That should play better now.
Hello, YouTube. Last week, I asked you how you would figure out your distance from the North Pole if you were trapped inside and unable to see outside. Many of you came up with the idea of using Foucault's pendulum, which is exactly what I'm going to be using. For those of you unfamiliar with the concept, a Foucault pendulum is just a very long pendulum that's free to swing in any direction. You might be wondering what's so cool or interesting about something as mundane as a very long pendulum. Well, if you watch this pendulum swing long enough, you'll notice that the plane it's swinging in is actually rotating. To see this effect, you have to watch the pendulum for hours. You might be tempted to dismiss this as some kind of mistake, some kind of experimental contamination. But no matter how carefully you isolate the system, the plane still rotates. So what's happening? Many of you may have guessed that it isn't the plane of the pendulum that's rotating, but the Earth. The pendulum is actually doing its best to just keep swinging back and forth in a fixed plane. This rotation of the pendulum's plane, or precession, is actually a prediction of Newtonian mechanics. Using Newton's laws and some vector calculus, you can actually show that the speed and direction of the pendulum's rotation depends only on your latitude.
So I don't want to go all the way through it. This is only a 5-minute thing anyway. It was just to cover why you were looking at it, and this is just to show you that the math is there. The experiment has actually been done, and it actually goes through and shows you that he's been marking it on a piece of paper with a brush at the end, has the actual thing there, and he gets within like 1% of his actual longitude at the end. And this can be an actual experiment that you do for yourself if you have a long enough building or high enough building to be able to make it long enough, the pendulum.
Well, what if it's not the rotation? What if it's something else that we can't understand?
Like what?
I don't know. Magnetics.
But we can understand magnetics. We understand magnetics very well. In actual fact, we actually understand magnetics more than we understand gravity.
Okay, well, what if it's some kind of other energy thing that we don't understand?
Then there would be measurements of it.
How do we know?
Because anything that has any sort of energy, it either gives off an energy or takes away a form of energy to reproduce it for itself, which means it's something that you can measure.
And again, that's a trust game.
Well, no, that's a measurement game. I get you with most of the other stuff, and I understand you with that. I really do. I'm not trying to be a dick or anything else like that. I'm really not.
Right.
But if you say that something is an energy, or could be an energy source, or is done by something natural, there will be a way of measuring it.
So there's a lot to unpack there.
Take
There's a
your time.
lot to
Take your
unpack in
time.
my mind. No, it's a lot that, again, it becomes a trust game. It becomes an issue of, if they don't want us to know, then how would we know?
In what aspect?
It's
Because there's
like
lots of amateur
it's
scientists.
it's like, for example, it's like electric cars. You know, we've had electric cars since like the 1800s. Why is it only now that we're talking about them?
Because
Because
now that they're
the
actually better mechanically than some of the petrol cars. Mechanically, they are slightly better than the actual petrol cars.
what if it is because it was the oil tycoons that kept that secret? Because
I
they
agree
wanted
with
to
you.
sell
That could be
oil.
a case. That could be a case. That could be a case for that.
So
That could be.
so it becomes, what if all of these mathematicians and these people that can measure this energy, measure this mathematics, even though we can do it ourselves, what if there's something else on the back of that that we don't understand? But they do, but we can only measure so far to a point, but they know what it is.
Well, that would be something like, say, say, for instance, when Stephen Hawking was first talking about the idea of black holes and the idea of, what do you call it, dark matter. When he actually come up with the theories, he was never alive to be able to get through to this substantiation that there was black matter. But his theories were able to get there and say, this is what you would be able to measure when we start measuring it. Now, don't get me wrong, Stephen Hawking's a massively intelligent guy, but if you have amateur scientists that are doing things like full quartz pendulum or something similar, and they're doing the measurements themselves, then surely there would be a way for them to be able to measure what may or may not be there. Because they're obviously trying to isolate all of their variables. Otherwise, if they didn't, they wouldn't be doing science very well.
Well, again, that comes down to what we're taught about it and what is on the other end of it that we may not know because they're holding it back from us. We don't know. Now, I can agree with you that, yes, you're right. If there's somebody doing it, they can measure everything, but it's like, I use the argument of the English language. It's like the English language, whenever you really get down to it, it seems like it was meant to harm us more than it was to help us. It doesn't seem like it was naturally made through years and years and years of different languages coming together. There are words hidden inside of the English language that are just there to hurt. And, it's like this great big spell casting. So it's, what do we know?
When you say hurt, do you mean as in to cause emotional pain, or what do you mean by hurt?
Spell casting was exactly what I said. What it was.
Okay. I get it now. That's fine.
That gets into it. That gets into another different subject, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That gets into. I mean, when that's been something that I've kind of drifted off on, is words within words, that when you pull out the words, and you can the two Latin words together, when they make a certain word, and it's like, this is that. What's the best one is like politics. Poly is multiple. Ticks are a blood-sucking parasite. Multiple blood-sucking parasites. Governance mentis, governing the mind. So politics are in the governments. It's multiple blood-sucking ticks governing your mind.
Sure, but say, for instance, that we change the word tics to mean something that somebody has from Tourette's. Does that now have the same power?
That goes back to who gave that word the original power. Because let's just say, if a wizard casts a spell on you, like a 200-year spell, and if you think that fades away, and if it turns into something else, it still has the power of the original spell. It's like symbols. The symbols that were made 2,000 years ago still mean what they meant 2,000 years ago, even though we may think, oh, it's just a plus sign or minus sign. It depends on what you are told that thing means now, and not what you were told it means then.
Sure. How do you square or hold the idea of, as you put it, spellcasting with the idea of your faith? Because obviously, with the idea of faith, there is no.
What do you mean there is no?
Well, there is no spellcasting. Only God is allowed to use His ways to be able to do things, or His anointed.
God gives us everything good and bad. He gives us joy and pleasure whenever we please him. He gives us evil and pain whenever we don't please him.
Sure.
When it comes to spell casting, he gives those things to the evil ones, the spirits of darkness, whatever you want to call it, of this world, in order to use against us. And because we have gone against his word, against his trust, he has given them the power to be able to use this against us in the great deception that we are in now.
Okay, I do want to take the religion aspect, but I'm really interested in this. Really interested in how this. I
kind of watched one video you had of some other guy that was on there that something about the atheism being bad. Sometimes people with religion, they just get so into one certain thing and they want to constantly feed you the stuff that they've been fed.
Sure.
But when you get down to reading the book and understanding it from a different perspective, it's like, no, it's, this is a completely different thing. Again, everything is different from what we're told. Everything, not just flat earth. It's just everything.
No, I can get behind that. But the thing that I'm trying to put away in a box for myself, for my own understanding, it's from my own understanding. I understand where you're coming from, but from my interpretation of the Bible, God, and everything else like that. Again, coming from an atheist background, so I'm going to have a biasity there anyway, or biasness towards it anyway.
Right.
But I see a contradiction there. So when I hear what you just said about God gives evil the chance to be able to do the spellcasting and being able to produce that onto the good of the world, that implies to me that God is in control of the question of evil. So when you have that logical, I'm a benevolent God, I'm an all-loving God. Well, how can an all-loving God cast evil onto the planet and allow it? Where you're saying that he doesn't just allow it, he's actually actively letting them get away with using spellcasting because he allows that to happen. Because he gives it to them.
He gives us the choice whether we will fall in with the evils or whether we will step away from it.
Okay.
We need to find the truth that it is this evil system that you either sell out into it or you go against it. You push against it. He wants the people that are pushing against it. He wants those that understand that it is the way it is, and he gives us power to be able to fight against that, to be able to hear the spells that are cast and to not have them hurt us. There is no weapon upon this world that can hurt me, because my Father has given me the truth and the ability to be able to fight that off. But for those that don't believe, there are so many times in the Bible where it says, for those that don't believe, they will have that. They will take that because they choose to believe in the lie.
Sure.
They choose to live in their unrighteousness. And if they choose to live in their unrighteousness, he will give them that. A lot of them will prosper for it. A lot of them will have wealth and power beyond their reckoning on this world.
Sure.
But my power, my wealth is in the next world, because I see past what is going on here.
Okay, so if your wealth is in the next world, and I'm not going to do that. Well, if you're looking so far forward to it, why are you still here? That's not an argument at all.
Yeah, because
It's not an
I
argument
cannot
at all anyway.
I cannot tempt my God. That's what he tells us. He says, you do not tempt your God. You do not push forward his timeline. He has a timeline for everything. You do not tempt your God. You let things happen because he is tempering you through this world to see how you will come out on the other side, because he wants tempered souls. He wants people that will fight through the fire and not just sell out into it or give up.
So do you believe in free will then?
Mm.
Like the Christian version, libertarian free will,
He
rather
gives-
than it being the oh, what's the other one? Oh, I can't remember the other one, where the God just dictated all and maintained everything. I can't remember what that's called.
He gives us absolute free will, because
Right.
if he were to dictate the way that we live, he would not be any better than Satan. He would be
So when you
everything
say,
that
so continue,
well,
sorry.
no, he would be everything that Satan said that God was, because Satan came down and told us that God is going to be a specific way. He's going to take this from you. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. Not know those words. It's in the book. I can't. I'm not the kind of guy that can quote
It's fine.
passages.
It's fine.
I can give you the general.
I'm not, and I want everybody in the chat to understand that we're all human beings.
Yeah.
The belief is what is important,
Yeah.
justifying it, not quoting the correct scripture or not.
No. So, but Satan told us that God is like that, but God said, no, I can't do that. I have to let them run through their course. I will let evil run its course. I will put evil down on its course in order to temper my children, in order to make them come out better.
Sure. The problem that I have with that is that if I'm a blacksmith and I'm tempering my swords and I'm tempering my daggers, my axes, my horseshoes, whatever we want to use, am I not directly shaping what I want that to be? So am I inflicting my will onto that process to be able to shape them the way I want them to be? Or was that the horseshoe or shoes or swords will to be a sword?
God knows the end from the beginning. God has known you since before you were born. God knows that if he has to take you through the fire and temper you to that way, that's what he will do. He knows this.
The reason why I'm pushing a little bit is because you say that you have absolute free will, and that's fine. That's fine. But you can't. To me, the contradiction is that if you say you've got absolute free will, then God's not supposed to have, in the way that you've explained it, from my understanding, is not supposed to have any influence on what's going on. As in, he cannot shape you to go to a particular way. He can advise you. He can advise you like a father would to a son in a football game, for instance. But he can't go out and play and kick the ball for you. Where what you're suggesting to me with the temperance, as in tempering, is a case of he's physically shaping that aspect and physically shaping that soul.
What if that advice that the parent gives to that kid playing football, what if that advice is the temperance? Because that kid playing football can either kick that goal in whenever he sees it right, or he can kick it a different way that his father told him not to and completely miss the goal.
Sure, but he could also kick it completely different to how his father, or the father in this instance, told him to do it, and find out that it works much better for him. Does that mean that he was right or the father was right?
Okay. That's a concept I can't really find a reason for. That still comes down to what the kid does. It's not about right or wrong. That's something between God and whatever else. There is a spiritual aspect to all this. I have to kind of explain it to everybody. There is this massive spiritual aspect to everything that we do not understand. We don't get it from the Bible. We don't get it from any other books. There are things that we don't know. There are things that it says that we don't know. Sure. And when we get to that other side, we get to know. Right now, we don't
Sure.
get to know that. So we can't explain why he does things the way they do things. Only he knows. And
No, I get that. I'm not trying to ask you to justify the way, the will, and the voice, so to speak. I'm not trying to ask you to justify those types of things. It's to go through, for me, your thought process of saying, well, God gives us this ultimate free will, which he may well do if he is indeed correct and true, then he may well do. But for me, you cannot then say, well, he gives you free will, but he's also tempering you by shaping you. To me, that's a contradiction. Now, I can understand if he's advising you, but if he's physically saying, well, right, what's going to happen is, because this is God, is that you're going to get bullied for the next 5 years heavily to the point of almost wanting to commit suicide. But then you don't, and you find God and you become a pastor, so to speak. Say that's the example that we're just using. Does that mean that God knows what path you're already taken and has taken those instances to make you go the way he wanted? Is that free will still there? Or is those actions leading you to a final conclusion that's already been predestined?
God knows the end from the beginning.
So there's no free will then?
He knows. It doesn't mean that he's doing it or not. I still have I've gone through this several times on my own because I used to do some pretty bad things in my life before I got saved, and I regret them a lot.
Sure.
And I pray for the forgiveness for them and the whole deal. But they come back every now and then. You know, things come back. So I start thinking, why the same way you're thinking is you would pull me this far for what? Is it so that I can understand that I have to keep doing this, or since I know that I'm saved, I don't have to worry about it because I know that your will is there. And for me, just for me personally, I've come to the conclusion that it is on me, that it's completely on me. He gives you these, it's the book of Job is what it is. He gave Job the worst life in the world, but Job kept his faith. He kept his faith for it. And in the end, he got twice as much on the outskirts of it because it was the devil. It was Satan that came to God and said, I can turn anyone, anytime, any when. And God said, are you sure about that? And that's what it was. He gives us that ability to go out and do all the worst things possible. But he always says, my patience is forever. It's like the my brain is so bad. It's like the prodigal son. It's like the prodigal son. The prodigal son wanted to take his inheritance and go out and just be the worst kind of person in the world. And when he got to his absolute lowest point, he came back and his father said, welcome back. Because he let his free will run. And when he found out that was not where he needed to go, that was him being tempered through the worst things in the world, he came back. God is always there. God is always patient. God is willing to take you back any time you want. I am absolute proof of that. It took me 40 years until he finally called me, and I said, okay, all right, this is where I need to be. So it's that free will. You can choose to go out and live your life, do whatever you want, and he lets you do that.
Sure. Let me just jump onto what you just said then.
Right.
God is obviously in this point. He's supposed to be omnipresent and supposed to know everything. So if he knows that I am going to go off and I'm going to party for 10 years and then I am going to fall into a depression and find God at the end of it and do what God wanted me to do to become a pastor, for instance. I keep on using that because, it's the bad turn good story. So
right.
So if he knows that that's my destiny, those are my choices that I'm going to make, is that already predetermined? Even though those are my choices that I'm going to make, and he's let me make those choices, but he knows I'm going to make them. Is that actual free will, or is that knowing that you've already seen what's going to happen and you're just going to let that run out? If you know that a program is going to go red, amber, green for traffic lights, and it's going to repeat it, you know when you can go. Does that mean you're already using your free will to go because of using your own knowledge to work it out? Or is it a case of the program's already there?
Somebody explained it very, very well several years back, where they said it's like if you watch a movie and you decided, I'm going to watch the last 10 minutes of the movie, and then I'm going to go watch the beginning. And you know how the movie's going to end. Now, you're going to want to change the actors, but the actors aren't going to change. They're going to keep doing exactly what they do until they get the end. Now, whether God does anything in between to change those actors, he already knows the end, he already knows the end outcome. So it is your free will through that he lets it go. Now, that's on your side where you're saying, but he puts all these obstacles because he's steering you in a certain way. And I used to say that I used to believe in fate, because I'm one of those guys that things just constantly happen around me that I can't explain. I could be driving down the street and then randomly run into somebody I haven't seen for 10 years. And then it's just like, one of those things. And I used to be able to be really good at it. And I could believe in fates, but I also said, but I can steer it just a little bit. If I do a certain thing here, I do a certain thing there. The best one I have is I was working on the brakes on my car one time, and I didn't have the car cinched in right, and I pulled the brake too hard, and the whole car fell forward right in front of me. Missed my foot because I was sitting cross-legged on the ground. Missed my foot by like 2 inches. And I said, that could have gone any million of ways possible, but God kept that from me. At the time, I said that was my grandfather looking out for me, or my stepdad looking out for me.
Sure.
But I said, now I understand. God had to have that happen so that I will know that I have to be careful. So that from this point on, I will understand, I will be able to, all those bad things I told you about that I did in my life, he let me do that so that I could have that, background to know not what to go back to. Because that was my free will to be as bad as possible. And now that I am here, I am doing his will, because when I was saved, he gave me a new heart. He gave me a new mind. He put his word in my mind. He put his will into my mind and my heart now, so that I can carry out what he needs me to do instead of what I want to do.
Sure.
Does that make sense? I mean,
no, I get it. I do get it.
I mean, that's
the thing that I would jump onto. The thing that I would jump onto is a case of, okay, I get that. Once you've done the bad and you've now gone to God, you're, in essence, I know you're not saying that, but you're a different person physically and spiritually. I get that. But how does the fact of you doing the bad, for instance, if I did bad and I started to severely hurt people, murder people, or whatever, how does that then change the fact of I've already done this evil onto other people that God has allowed, that he's known that I was going to go and do, that he's now accepted was a part of my will and his will because he's allowed it? So how does that square away? Like, I get the thing with you personally, but how does that affect onto other people?
What if he was causing you through your free will in order to affect them in a way that changed their life?
Okay, so let's say I murdered people. How have I changed their life at that point in time, that they haven't decided that they're going to declare themselves to God, or they believe in God on their dying beds or whatever? How is that any sort of beneficial to God and God's plan?
We don't know. That's God's plan. That's not our plan. That was your free will, your evil that did it. You
But
don't.
allowed by God.
The biggest problem with that, when people say it's allowed by God, is that it's not like people like me can go out and murder a million people, then turn around and say, well, I'm saved now because God saved me and all this stuff. It never says that in the book. It says we will atone for every sin, no matter what. We ask forgiveness, and that will take away some of what we did. But there is still that evil that we did that will take away a part of our soul in the end. We're not completely saved. I don't know why people say that constantly. You're not completely saved. And it's not like it's a once saved, always saved kind of thing. It's a.
You know what my next question is going to be, don't you?
What's it going to be?
That if you have parts of your soul that are not saved, or parts of you that are not saved, how do you or God weigh that? Are you taking a pound of flesh, or is it a case of there is a pound of your soul disappearing? How much of your soul needs to go before God won't save you? If you call to him.
For that, I have to go to the phrase that I said before was, I am building my treasures in heaven. Maybe there's something to it to where you don't get as much in heaven. I don't know. The Bible doesn't go specifically into that kind of stuff. It says that there are mansions being built in heaven for us, and that we will be tried by what we did in this world, but it never promises that we will get absolute 100% salvation of everything. There's a spiritual aspect to it that I don't know. I'm still learning. I'm not, as much I'm as much as a Bible study as I am a scientist. So I can't. I'm still doing my and I will. This is something I'll definitely pray on to have him give me the the wisdom on this, because he's given me a wisdom on a lot of stuff. This one I haven't gone into yet.
Sure.
So maybe this is the path that I need to go. Maybe this is something that I had to do. I came here to try to save people. Maybe you're putting me on something else that I should probably go look up.
I'm just happy to be able to have a conversation and just being able to ask questions.
It's been an interesting conversation, man. It's definitely been something different. You've made me think about some things. I still don't think you're gonna change my flat Earth mind, but
I didn't think I was going to.
And we never even covered like half of the other stuff. I'm sure we never covered any of the crazy NASA pictures or anything. But it's not. I'm past the point of trying to prove that the Earth is flat. I am now into trying to prove the lie of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the big thing. It's like they just fed us all this stuff, and there's just so many things that don't make sense. And sometimes when I sit back and I think about it, I'm like, man, this sounds crazy. It's like, who the heck am I anymore? This is insane. It's trying to put these pieces together.
Sure.
It doesn't make sense. And it's just every little thing I look at, and I'm like, you just can't trust anything. I almost had a completely blank slate my entire life in order to be able to, get back to where I am here. And I'm not perfect.
I don't think anybody is.
I don't have any answers. I really don't. I don't have answers. I have questions. I have tons of questions. And I
think that's a good thing, though.
Yeah.
Because questions means that you're seeking answers, and it doesn't mean that you've already decided what the answers are and seeking evidence to prove your answers.
I wish I could remember that statement I heard from I was like Family Guy or something. It was something like somebody asked a politician a question. It's like, that's a good question. Without questions, we don't have answers. And an answer without a question is just a statement. So,
that's very true. That's very, very true. I think a lot of people are like that now. It's fine actually having the questions to be able to get them answered, but it's wrong when you're actually presenting your answer as a question, because you're not trying to look for anything. You're just stating your opinion.
Yeah.
So I
No.
completely agree with that. I have one more question, and I think that we can start wrapping up if that's okay with you, or if you want to continue, that's also fine.
That's fine either way. My I think I hear my wife moving around up there. She's sick, so she's been sleeping all day. So
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah. My last and final question, which may take a little bit longer than other questions, is why Christianity? Now, I understand that you went to faith, but why Christianity? Why not Judaism? Why is it that you're... And you don't have to give me what your Pacific domination is, but why is it your Pacific doctrine of Christianity that is the correct one, that is the one that you think is true, and why is that God the true God? Again, that's probably about 4 questions, but they're the same.
No, they're about the same question. Well, again, that started with Rob Skiba, who was a Christian. He moved more towards the Hebrew roots of Christianity, where it's not just the blood of Christ, but we have to follow some of the law as well. I'm still doing my learning on that. But he broke it down, not only the flat earth stuff between what was in the Bible, what was in the book of Enoch and everything else. But he was one of the ones that was going into and this is going to get crazy, so you're in for it. He was going into the Nephilim, the fallen ones, the giants,
Sure.
the fallen angels. He was going into all that, the bloodlines, the things like that. And it was the one thing that made me read the Bible.
Sure.
In order to see. And there was not much else that I was hearing that was talking about that stuff. The closest thing, there's some Hindu books that talk about different wars in the world, airships and nuclear bombs and mutated people, interesting things that could lead to things like the elephant with the 6 arms and whatever, things like that. There were, because I started
very, very quickly, just to not to correct you's sake,
Right.
but just so information is correct, is that they actually did hybrids, and it was the gods that created the animal hybrids that took them up into the sky to create the hybrids between the animals and the humans.
For who was that? That was for the Indian.
The Hindus, yes.
The Hindu. Sorry, yeah. Okay.
It's fine. We know what you meant. That's fine.
I haven't read all that book. I've read parts of that book, but I never actually, it's really, really interesting how some of the old religious texts, the things they talk about. But it led me to where, I started reading the Bible. I started seeing how it was not only, how do I want to put this? It was hitting me on a certain level that I couldn't understand. For a long time, I was atheist, maybe atheist agnostic at best. I wanted to believe in something, but there was just nothing there for me. I used to use the Bible, and I say this a lot. I used to use the Bible, the passages in the Bible, to be able to argue with Christians, is to say, what is this? What is that? Why does this say this? But it's because of the things that I didn't see was what turned me, was that, you talk about giants in the world and you go out and you see that there were newspaper articles about giants. People are finding these giant skeletons. They're talking about these different weird things that kind of match what it was saying. And it all just kind of culminated into this point where I just said, this is the true word, because it came to me. However you want to say, divine faith, that just broken down crying on the floor one night. Once I really had like a good 4 or 5 years of just looking into the truth, I just kind of got to the point where I was breaking down crying on the floor, and I said, save me, help me, do something, please. And I was touched. I something happened to me inside that cleared my entire body up, and everything just it was like this whole new thing,
Sure.
And I just had that epiphany, that moment where it was like, that's it, that's what it was, that's what I needed. I had somebody actually argue with me one time before where they said that, well, what if that was just all in your head? What if you needed something so bad that you were the one that made yourself pray, and that you were the one that healed yourself, and you were the one that gave you that feeling in your body? And I said, okay, then why are you trying to take that away from me? What if this is all in my mind? What if me reading a book is all in my mind, and it helped change me to a point that I pushed away all of the bad stuff I ever did? I was able to reconcile with my stepdaughter. I was able to have the best 3 years of my life with my granddaughter. I was able to get a better focus on life, to be able to focus on not only where I was going spiritually, but to be able to get a new job, because I was really hurting at the time. I was unemployed, to where we just bought this new house. This is a brand new house right here. So why, if it's all in my head, why are you trying to take it away from me? I mean, if it's all in my head, let me have my delusion, because this is the real stuff right here. This isn't.
I think that would be the issue. It's like, say for instance, you have, now I'm not saying this is the equivalence, but let's use this as an example, right? So you have somebody that is under the delusion that they can fly, and it makes them happy that they can fly, but they don't need to go and fly. Just the happiness of knowing that they can, if they wanted to, is enough, right?
Right.
But it starts getting to the point of they want to fly. They want to go and fly. They've had all of these nice things. They've had a good relationship with the daughter. They've had a good relationship with themselves and everything else like that. But now what they want to do is they want to go and fly, because they've been thinking that they can do this for a long, long time, and that's what they want to do. Would you say at that point that delusion is healthy? Because if they're getting ready to jump off of a roof, would that delusion be healthy?
Jumping off a roof could hurt them. Does my believing in God hurt me?
No, but it could, depending on your belief patterns, hurt other people.
This gets into some really heavy stuff. So when it comes to that, I can't tell other people what to do. I can give them the word like we're supposed to, but I can't tell you what to do. I'm not going to tell you not to go be gay. I'm not going to tell you not to go be, a certain kind of person. I can't tell you to go do all that stuff. That's not on me. That's not for me to judge. That's for him to judge. What I can do is I can tell you that this book says that he does not want that. And if you choose not to follow that, that's on you, because that's your free will. He wants you to come back, and he loves you, and he wants you to come and learn a better way.
Sure.
But if you choose not to do that, I can't do that. I'm one of the good Christians. I'm not one of those that goes out with the signs and say that everybody's going to hell. I'm not one of those. No,
I wasn't ever trying to push
no.
that side of things.
No, I've actually read the book. The book tells us explicitly not to do that stuff. We are not supposed to be that kind of judgmental. We are supposed to preach the word. We're not supposed to.
Yeah, I think it's like four. I think it's like four or five times where Jesus basically comes out and says, paraphrasing, obviously not direct quotes, but paraphrases, "Judge ye that's not been judged."
Mm-hmm.
So basically, if you can't judge somebody because you've already done something, then you shouldn't be judging them.
Yes, everybody can. If I judge somebody, everybody can judge me on the worst crap, and I'm.
Yeah, I mean, what I was getting with that delusion is that we could see that the delusion itself gave that person a lot of happiness, until it come to the point of that person following up with the delusion to make it a real delusion, a real aspect of their life that they can, in fact, fly. Watch me, I'm going to go do it. And the reason why I use that as a way of, as an analogy, is simply because there are people that can and do take religions of all stripes. It doesn't matter if it's Christianity, Islam, Judaism to a degree, or even Buddhism, because people from the Taoism and Buddhism have gone out of their way to try and murder the Hindus and Sikhs. So nobody's free from their religious persecution, so to speak. But can take the extremes of that and use that delusion as we're using it as the example of going out to hurt other people. Now, the delusion on this side is you can say that when you're going off to hurt other people based on a delusion, you are hurting yourself. You're directly hurting someone else, but you are doing it because you may be under a wrong belief, and that is hurting you.
And that's your opinion that I'm under a wrong belief.
No. My opinion wasn't that you're under a wrong belief. That wasn't my opinion. They were saying that if we can accept that the analogy to this is a delusion, if we can accept the analogy, it's not a direct comparison, and I'm not saying it is, and I don't want you to even admit to the point of religion is a delusion of any description. I don't want you to do that. That's not what I'm trying to get you to admit to or whatever. It's to try and say that if we can admit that a delusion that is as obvious as if I go and fly, I'm going to die, and say that, well, that's obviously a bad delusion. The statement that you made beforehand saying, well, if a delusion is helping me, then how can that be a bad thing? Well, the delusion up to that point for that person was I can fly like a Superman, and has turned his life around. The delusion itself is not the problem. It's what you do with the delusion after all that then affects other people or yourself.
We are judged by our fruits. Bible says that we are judged by the fruits that we it comes down to planting seeds and how well we've harvested our seed. Not seed like birth seed, but you know what I mean. It comes down to we are judged by the things we do on this world. And there are a lot of Christians that have done a lot of bad things in the name of their God that have given everybody a bad name. Even worse, there has been a deception inside of Christianity that has turned the faith into something way evil. And most people and people that I've known personally, that whenever I started coming to Christ, they came to me and they said, you know, do you need help understanding this? I can teach you how to yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, I don't need that help, because that the way you're describing it tells me that you want to change what I'm reading. It's that even Christ said whenever he was in the world that there is already a manipulation of the word in the world. And it's manipulated. It's this whole thing where I tell everybody, and I don't want to call anybody out, but it's the everybody somehow thinks that Catholicism is religion. Catholicism is Christianity, not religion. I'm sorry. It's not. It's not everything you see on TV, not all the stories you hear about, you know, little kids getting molested, not all the, you know, the palaces of gold that they have, all the other stuff. That's not the book.
Sure.
That's just not the book. You have to understand that what it says in the book and what we're shown is just another lie. It's just another manipulation. Sure. It's just another, you know, it's the whole premise of, like I said, it's just everything. It's that trust game.
Could I give you another analogy that I actually think is a hell of a lot better than the flying one? actually works in a bit better, and maybe I would be able to get my point across a bit easier. The analogy I would like to use is the analogy of believing in ghosts. So overall, that sounds like it's nothing. It's nothing really important. It's a belief, isn't it? You could believe in ghosts. They may be real. They may not be real.
Could be demons.
Exactly. It could be literally anything. Any sort of theory,
yes.
any sort of demonology. It could literally be anything, right? So, say for instance, you have a passing sort of view where you believe in this, so you're happy. You start watching a bit of YouTube videos. It takes about 3 or 4 years to get down this line where you're starting to think, well, I might go off and quit my job, and I might decide that I'm going to start doing some investigations. I want to prove it because everybody's telling me that they don't exist. So I want to go and prove it to them. So I'm going to quit my 50 to 100K a year job to go and do this. I've got everything needed. I've got my gang together. I've got everything sorted out. I start getting to the point of, well, now I'm doing these investigations. I'm now another 5 years down the line where I've done these investigations. I've got bits and pieces that I believe is true, but my wife doesn't believe is true, and I'm not making any money off of it anymore, and she's left me. Now, that's obviously really bad, but I need to prove that these ghosts are real. I need to prove it. So I'm going to have to continue another 5 years down the line. My daughter's no longer speaking to me. My wife's no longer speaking to me. I'm all on my own. The people that I was investigating with, that I shared my happiness with, is now disappeared. But I'm still sure that there's ghosts. Has that delusion caused me harm? Even though I was happy doing what I was doing.
That's going to be for that individual person. I can't say, because if I were to see it, and I may say something, and if he chooses not to listen to me, then I can't do anything about it, because I tried. What can you do? It's if it comes down to letting that person find out on their own, because I can't make that decision. I can't make that decision for them. I can say that that's a bad thing, but that's my opinion.
Sure.
But I can't stop that guy and say, dude, you need it, or else I can say that, but it's not like I'm going to tie this guy up and, throw him in the thing and say, and then all you can do is just kind of shake your head and say, he did it to himself. Yeah.
Sure, but I suppose my point on that one is the delusion made him happy. He was happy with what he was doing. But is the fact that he lost his wife, his job, his family, so to speak, maybe even his home at some point, was that actually a delusion that was healthy for him, even though he was happy?
I can't make that decision. That is going to be on him. For me personally, that hurt him. But that's just an opinion. I mean, that's all we can have is opinions.
No, I agree. That's fair enough. I think that's fair enough. I don't think I'm going to get much more from that, and I think that's a big enough point already. I'm just saying, I think that's big enough already. If you're going to admit that that's a hurt, then I think that's fair enough, and I don't need to go down any further on that one. Is there anything else that you would like to ask me? Because I've said that I was going to give you the challenge to do you, but that didn't work.
No, when I do videos, I go off on so many tangents and I start talking about some weird, crazy stuff that, I don't know if people really understand or not. And since the lockdowns, just about everything I was studying just disappeared. You listen. I was listening to a lot of. I was actually getting into Native American myths about giants and some of their culture and things they used to talk about, and I was getting into a lot of other things, and then it was just like COVID, and that's all we talked about. You know, every channel I know either got banned from YouTube or that's all anybody wants to talk about anymore. People are just now coming back and talking about other stuff again.
Mhm.
But it was a matter of everything just went away, and I have I've gotten to the point to where it's so hard to find good information anymore, and I've fallen off of that path, and I've fallen back into reading the Bible again, because that's, it's the only thing that, it is what it is. It's just I don't know what you think of it, but I absolutely think we've fallen into just another deception, just another thing. And
I think people like to talk about what's in front of them. So when 9/11 happened, regardless of what you believe happened or didn't happen with 9/11, that's not the point.
You said it twice within 5 minutes. You're getting
yeah,
cut.
yeah, I know, yeah. But
that
with
algorithm sucks, man.
yeah, with that, it was a worldwide event, so everybody was talking about it. So you had people that were coming up with their own theories. I'll leave that as that. You had people that were coming up with the standard deviation from the government. This is what happened. I'll leave that as that, and other people can talk about that whenever they want. But you had your two opposing views, and everybody was talking about it because it was such an important magnitude of an event. Now, you could argue that COVID is something similar to where it's a magnitude international worldwide event that's affecting everybody at all times. So most people that are going to be focusing on what affects them, because we're naturally a selfish species. Well, COVID affects me. These lockdown affects me. I'm against government, or I'm for these, or whatever. You have your opposing opinions that are going to come out, and you have an us versus them again situation. Because, as we said off stream, they tend to organically manifest because story goes out. Well, I think this, I think that. Well, fuck you, and that kind of what happened. Blastmaster 8 is asked quite an interesting question. I don't know if you can see it, but if you can't, I'll read it out for you. Yep. For the listeners, it's question for Nick. Are people and society better off if they believe things that are generally true as opposed to not true? Does that reliability of the method you use matter to you?
And that comes down to what is generally true. Again, what do we know to be true? Everything we know, we were taught by somebody else, unless we go out and find it for ourselves. I know the only thing I know to be, for me, I know the only thing to be genuinely true is maybe the last 25, 30 years, because that's about all I can remember. And even then, I have questions. I do come at it from a very conspiratorial way. I do think that it is a lie on top of a lie on top of a lie. You have to prove all things to be true and let no man deceive you. So they have to be absolutely genuinely true in terms of we have to know it. We have to get it from some source that we can trust. We have to be able to at least find it for ourselves. I think that's the biggest thing, is just trying to find it for ourselves and understand it for ourselves. I mean, there may not be any. Well, I had a quote I just looked up while I was kind of doing other stuff. That was William J. Casey, CIA director in 1981, said, "We'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false." For the American public, that may not include anybody else or not, but that is a definite reference to the CIA saying that we'll know everything's complete whenever you can't believe a damn thing we tell you. That was an actual quote. That's intent. that's that spell casting intent that I was talking about earlier. That right there says there's a deception. Period. 100%. What deception? You have to find that out for yourself. So it's hard to find things that are generally true. Does the reliability of the method you use matter? Absolutely. If you can't find out for yourself, see it for yourself, again with the pictures of the things that are on the water, the the power lines, whatever they were going over the side, I would love to be able to go out and see those for myself. I saw Chicago from 20 miles away over Lake Erie. Are my eyes wrong? Possibly. I don't know. I actually have to wear glasses. I'm not wearing glasses right now, so I can't trust anything. We have a joke. My wife and I have a joke that you cannot trust anyone because even your own mouth will bite your tongue.
Yep.
And every time it happens, we stop and say that because it doesn't matter. Every single time it happens, we have to, you can't trust anything. And I can see why there's so many people out there that say that none of this is real, that this is all a computer program and that everything is, wild and crazy. And it's like, I can understand that to a point. I really can, because deja vu is a thing, these weird, crazy glitches in the Matrix where there's like two of the exact same color car, sitting side by side are the same thing, you can see cloning in the trees. It's a thing. So what is going on there? There's something else happening in the world. Some people have said the Bible says that it is the veil being lifted, that we are seeing past the physical. We are starting to see something in the spiritual. I'm not going to say that because I can't, that's way, way out there. I know there is a spiritual aspect to everything, like I said, and we don't even know the half of it. Because this is not, the Bible even says this is not a physical battle. This is a battle between the spirits of evil that I can't remember the exact quote, but there's something going on, and
see, I noticed, or I sort of half guessed, I'll be honest with you. I guessed that when Blastmaster asked the first question, I knew that your point was going to be on truth. Your hold up, so to speak, was going to be on truth. How do we determine what truth is, and so on and so forth? Mine is on if they believe. Now, my aspect on my hold up on that is if it comes to your belief, you can believe anything you want because you can rationalize it. But does that make it knowledge?
No, it doesn't make it knowledge.
That's where my hold up on the question is. That if it was better off on their knowledge of things that are generally true, I think that's better on belief. I can believe anything to be true, regardless of what we want to go into. But do I have knowledge of that being true? And then following up with, does that reliability of method to find knowledge matter to you? Of course it does. Knowledge matters much more than what the belief of the matter is, because the knowledge is the truth of the matter, regardless of what it may or may not be.
Right.
Belief is anything that you want it to be, as long as you can rationalize it.
And that's what I am just trying to find, truth that is not completely based in my belief. I want to find the truth of my belief, but on that same token, the things of this world do not match the knowledge. Does that make any sense? Is that just again, it's just that whole concept of, you're told one thing and this is something that's completely different or slightly different. It's that disconnect. And I don't know. I need to stop talking with my hands because guys that talk with their hands are casting spells. I hate it, but it is what it is. I know, right? hey, when anybody that's listening to this, go watch Bill Gates talk. Oh, he is so terrible. oh, he talks with his hands so much, and you're just like, that's how magicians do. You know, they used to do that abracadabra, nothing up my sleeve, and
Yeah,
slide
it's all
slide
there
a
for
hand,
distraction. Yeah,
and it's just like that's what he does, and you can
Yeah.
just see it, and you're just like, stop. But yeah, no, I have a problem with that, and I do it on my videos too. I keep telling them I got to put my hands down because you guys are going to start thinking I'm doing something crazy, and I don't need you to.
That's fine. We're not looking at your hands for that. Joking.
No.
But I do think that type of understanding is actually really important. Because if we're going to talk about the idea of your hang up being the truth, for instance, on that particular question, what is truth? If we can only talk about what the belief of the truth is, then we're never going to get to what the knowledge of the truth is. So, and Blastmaster's next question was going to be along the lines of, well, how would you determine what your knowledge is, what the method is of getting that knowledge? Because you can say to, like, I can say to you, well, you get all your knowledge from the Bible. To me, being an atheist, that's a case of, well, that's absolutely goddamn stupid and you should never do that. To you, that is where that information is because you believe the book is true. Now, where is the knowledge in both of our statements? There isn't any until you actually work out a method of proving what is true or not.
Until you bring it out into the real world.
So how would you actually go about trying to do that? I know that you said before that you come from a conspiratorial background, which is fine, but how would you get to a method of truth in your mind? I think everybody's trying to ask that question.
That is a hard one. That is, you would have to become the scientist, become the geologist, find that way to be able to understand those concepts. And then you would have to test those things in order to find the truth. My biggest problem with that is most of the becoming a scientist, becoming, geologist, whatever.
Sure.
It's just all standardized test. You're just basically regurgitating what other people say.
Sure.
And most scientists, they don't go out and find the stuff. They just take what they learned in the book.
Sure.
And they just take that on to the next thing. And then, let's just say they use the calculations to be able to find a certain thing that was in the book. If those calculations were wrong to begin with, what does that say about the data that they're using?
Sure, completely and utterly get it. See, the way that I would try to answer that question is the same way that when people talk to me about religion in general, they normally ask me, well, how would I prove God to you, meaning to me? And I would always say to them, anything that is testable, repeatable, and I can measure. Any one of those things that is demonstrably going to be attributed towards a god, like for instance, I pray to a god and I want a gold bar, and a gold bar pops in front of me. That to me is demonstrable, repeatable evidence that God is true, and that's enough for me. Now, it doesn't have to be a gold bar, obviously being hyperbolic. So for me, I would always choose the point of anything that's testable, repeatable, and what was the third one? Testable, repeatable. Oh Jesus, I forgot.
Yeah, I know too. I know where you're going with it, and I can't think of it either.
My mind just popped. Yeah, testable, repeatable. Yeah. Yeah, one would have to be testable and repeatable. There is a third one. I can't remember. My brain's gone. It's we've been going for 2 hours and 25 minutes, so we've been going for a while now. So my brain's a little bit
right.
It's kickstarting back in. Yes, falsifiable. Thank you very much, Larry. Falsifiable. It has to be a way of being able to disprove it.
Right.
So it has to be testable, repeatable, and falsifiable. Larry's got that completely spot on. Yeah, that's the way that I would want to prove my knowledge. So with the idea of testing, if I don't know, if 2 + 2 = 4, well, I can take 2 bits of oil and go, well, if I add another 2 to them, then I've got 4 of them. So it's testable, it's repeatable, and it's falsifiable. Well, if I only have 3 of them, well, that doesn't add up to 2 plus 2, so I can't get 4.
All right.
So on that sort of a really simple analogy, that's what I would want for knowledge. That would prove me knowledge. Now that doesn't mean I have to go off to be able to learn. For me, like, I have to learn everything about science. But if I have paper after paper that is telling me that to be able to make a bridge, going back to the flat Earth, that if to be able to make a bridge, I've got to take into account the Earth curvature, and here's the calculation for it, and it's the same calculation that they use, or roughly, just different variables in the calculation, that proves the fact of that curvature, I'm going to be more inclined to think, well, that's got to be why are they doing that? There must be a reason why they're doing it, and it adds up to being the level. So that maths works for some reason. So that has to be curvature. Now you could say, well, that's an inductive way of reasoning. It's like, well, no, they've done the test, they've repeated it, and it's falsifiable. If I change the measurements, those calculations, one's going to be taller than the other. So that's the way that it works for me, at least on that notice. And I'm just thinking, how would you do that for yourself?
For me now, that would be hard, because on that same token, where you have to ask the question is the, 35, 40 documents that NASA put out that says that every calculation they do is based upon a flat stationary model. And that's the question, is what it is. That's the question that needs to be asked, that I don't think anybody asks. You know, they want to put it in a video and say, why is this like that? But nobody wants to like actually go up to the people that are on the top and say, why is this like this? Why is it that, you know, like you said, the Golden Gate Bridge is separated by such and such to be able to count for the curve, yet you guys are flying jets that are, you know, going hypersonic speeds over a flat and stationary Earth. What does that mean? Why is that a thing?
Well, I mean, again, I'm not a scientist, but from the points of the papers that I've read that I've used up, which are normally to do with fuselages and airplanes, is the fact that they have to assume it's a flat stationary plane because they're flying. So as they're flying so fast, with it being level with the ground, not horizontal, but level, that's the reason why you stick at the same altitude, because you're being level with the ground. So if a mountain comes up to you, you're not being level at 40,000 feet anymore, because the mountain's already 50,000 feet. So it doesn't matter. You're not going to go up to another 80,000 because you're level with it. You're going to fly into the mountain. So you have to go up and over it and elevate. So you have to assume a flat and stationary plane when you're flying.
But that brings up the question, then planes going, 300 miles an hour, something like that?
Something like that. 300
miles an hour, surely they have to dip the nose down, and that the gyroscopes that are not laser, by the way, the gyroscopes inside the plane never change?
Well, they do. That's why it keeps with the horizon. The actual autopilot also puts the nose down. But again, if your elevation is at 30,000 feet, you don't have to keep putting the same nose down, because you're assuming a flat and stationary plane, because you're flying with the Earth.
You don't have to put the nose down because you're assuming a flat and stationary plane. That just sounds contradictory to me.
Let me put it this way, right? If I had a ball, right, and I was flying at 10,000 feet above the ball, and I'm going above the ball, so I'm staying at the elevation 10,000 feet all the way around the ball, I don't need to change my elevation because I'm going round the ball at that time. So I don't need to change anything. I'm staying at 10,000 feet going around it. That's why they say assume a flat and stationary plane, because your elevation stays the same as you're going around the Earth.
But you still have to dip the nose, or else you'll fly straight, because the gyro is constantly level.
If you're flying at a constant 10,000 feet, that means that your elevation stays at that 10,000 feet. So if you're flying at 10,000 feet, you're staying at 10,000 feet. If you were flying straight, your elevation would end up going to 11,000 feet, 12,000 feet. So you'd have to still stick at the 10,000 feet anyway.
But is the
That's how it.
is the gyroscope affected by gravity?
I wouldn't know. I don't. I wouldn't even try and pretend that I know on that one. So I wouldn't know.
That's something that you should probably look into. Is the gyroscope affected by gravity? Because if it were that it was following gravity around the curve, then the gyroscope would constantly pull around. But most of the gyroscopes you see, they stay at the same whenever they go anywhere, don't they? Am I wrong? I'm sure somebody's gonna say, "Yeah, you're wrong."
Just repeat what you said just quickly, because unfortunately I was typing.
The gyroscopes stay at one specific level, that they don't move when you fix them, and that whenever you take them, let's say on the side of the ball, that it's going to be here at the top of the ball. When it gets to the side of the ball, it's going to still be this way because it's a fixed position. It doesn't move.
Yes. The reason why that happens is because the gyroscope is affected by gravity.
How is that affected by gravity if it stays still?
What do you mean if it stays still? Even if the gyroscope is staying still, the Earth isn't. That's the reason why you can do the rotation.
I'm saying when it goes from here to the side of the ball, it stays. It doesn't move. The gyroscope doesn't move. Somebody's saying that they've flown a Cessna and they've seen the Earth. So then why is it that pilots are saying that they don't see a curve? Why is it? This isn't about what it is. This isn't about whether it's a ball or if it's flat. This is about why are people saying this now? And
can I make an observation? You can tell me if I'm wrong or right on this one. And I don't mean to be rude when I say this at all. It seems to be that you're looking for lies, not necessarily holes, but lies to validate the fact that you think people are lying to you.
Well, I'm trying to find out if the people that said these things are lying. I'm trying to find out why one person says one thing and then one person says another thing. That's what I'm talking. I'm not saying this guy is lying because I don't know. I've been up inside of an airplane myself and I don't remember what it looks like because I was too young. I know that there are curved windows on an airplane. I know that it's the way that it is. But pilots are now saying they take those big 747s, whatever they are, up into the sky and they see flat. And yet the people in the back are saying they see curves. Why is that? That's the disconnect that I have a problem with. Is that?
Do you think that more people are going to ask the pilots if they see a curve than the people in the back? Because why would the people in the back lie generally? Where if, say for instance, you worked as a police officer, and say you kept on getting somebody coming up to you that was saying, "Oh, somebody's going to keep on robbing that store," or "Somebody I think is going to be doing this," or whatever. You're going to just go, "Yeah, all right, mate." And generally, most of the time, when pilots normally do that type of thing, it's the same thing when you have that same kid in school that asks the same question over and over again. Eventually, the teacher just goes, "Yeah, you're absolutely right, Jimmy. You're absolutely right," and just moves on. It's to make things easier so you don't have to deal with the fact of the same questions that you deal with over and over again. Now, that doesn't make it right that they may or may not be lying about the shape of the Earth, and maybe they shouldn't be. But why is it that the pilots are saying one thing, but you have a majority of people that are confirming what everybody else says? But yet the pilots are the ones that get asked that question more than everybody else.
Why? That's what I'm asking.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing that you just said now.
It's what I said before is that because the people in the back are seeing what's outside their window. And the people in the back, I've heard and seen enough posts from enough people that have said, "Oh, I was up at 30,000 feet while I was flying to wherever. I saw the curve; it was there." I've heard enough of those to say, okay, people are looking out their windows and they're seeing curves.
Sure.
But I've seen enough videos of pilots that are saying, we're looking at the windows and we're not seeing anything but flat. Why is that? It's your question. You said it too. Why? Why are people saying one thing and the pilots are saying another? Why is that?
It's the same thing as what I said. If you have a particular student in class that asks the same question over and over again, 9 times out of 10, the teacher ends up going, yes, you're absolutely right, so that the teacher can move on. It's the same thing as when you have a disruptory student. They do exactly the same thing. It's the same thing as when you give the idea of, yeah, that's absolutely right, and then you can move on. When you're a pilot, you have limited, when you're a commercial pilot specifically, you don't actually have that much time. So if you have somebody that wants to sit and ask you questions about something that they believe in for 20 to 30 minutes every time that they have a flight, and they have 4 flights in a day, for instance, for going from one end of America to another end of America to go to another end of America, then you're losing 2 hours of your day. Where if you can just say, yeah, no, you're right, it's flat, that's that conversation done. You're off. You can go.
So that's a lie.
Yes, people lie, though.
Okay, well then they're lying. There's other lies too.
Yes, but that's why
it's more deception.
Rather than personal test.
You have people lying about something that may or may not be true, and you have people that are lying about other things that may or may not be true. It's deception all the way around. Why should I believe? Okay, why should I believe that pilot can fly this plane if he's going to lie to me? Why should I even?
You've literally just seen him fly the plane.
But it just that's an insane argument. I get your argument. That's kind of a roll around argument for you, is to say, well, he's just lying. So you get it?
Well,
it's the same. It's the same.
Argument isn't just.
You're saying that the pilot.
Oh, he's lying.
You're saying that the pilot is saying that it's flat because he just wants to get rid of people off the plane.
No. Not that he wants to get people
that's
rid
exactly
off of the
what
plane.
You said, man.
No, not to get people rid. No. So he or she can have more time out of the plane.
Most of those.
So he or she can have some more time out of it because they don't get a lot of downtime.
But you're telling me that they're lying just to be able to get people off their back. Now,
have you not done that ever before?
How do you?
Because I have.
Oh, I know I have. I don't do it much anymore though. But how do you know that somewhere along the line a scientist hasn't told you that just to be able to get you to believe in something?
Because we can test it. That's the point of what I said before about testable, repeatable, and falsifiable. I remembered it this time.
And if your tests were wrong, if the calculations were wrong, what does that say about your results?
Then if the tests are wrong and the calculations are wrong.
I said the calculations, not the test. If you can do the test, fine, but if your calculations are wrong,
then the test will be wrong.
Okay.
Then the whole test will be wrong. That's the reason why we test and use different calculations to try and do it. That's why we falsify it.
So this comes back to people lying.
Well, that's the reason why science is so trusted.
You are on the side of the people that want to tell you what you know, and I'm on the side of not trusting anybody because I'm hearing 20 different things and I can't make up my mind what is right and what is wrong.
Okay,
that's where I am, and there is nothing you can say to change that about me.
That's fine. I'm not going to try and change it. But first of all, I'm not on anybody's side.
It doesn't make. Yes, you are. You just said you were.
No,
you're more
not
on the side of the scientists than you are trying to. Okay, let me put it another way, because yes, I am going to a different place. You're coming at me from a scientific view. How about that? You're trying
I'm coming from you from a data set.
From a data set. That's a new one.
Well, if we're going to talk about the calculations to the tests, but the scientists are lying, I can falsify the scientists' statements by the calculations and tests that they've done. Mm-hmm. So I can look at the papers that other people are doing that have done what they've said that they've done. And if it's peer-reviewed, it would have been tested by people that do not want this person to be able to get to where they're going. So it would have been falsified, which means that their test would have used different calculations, would have found more ways of falsifying it, making it crash or making it fail. But if it doesn't fail, then it doesn't matter what the scientist says. The calculations and the test prove him or her. That's where I'm coming from. The data set, not the personalities of the scientists.
Well, I definitely cannot believe that everybody's lying just to get people off their back for the whole. I mean, you can take that opinion if you want, but that's.
I don't think all pilots do that anyway.
I don't think all pilots do that either. I've heard enough pilots to say it's curved and flat earthers are idiots, but I've heard enough that have said that. And if one person is lying, then how do we know the other person's not lying? That's like that's the old three knights thing where two of them are liars, one of them's not, and one of them says that the other two are liars or some kind of crap like that.
Sure.
Philosophy nonsense I learned in college. And I would not lower my belief in a flat earth because east and west are on a compass. And if north is in the middle of the plate or whatever you want to call it, then you could fly east and west because the compass would constantly be pointing north.
I think what he's trying to say was that if you flew from, say, Michigan, for instance, and you flew all the way around the Earth, stopping in the same singular places, like you stopped off in Europe, you stopped off in Russia, you stopped off at China, and then you got back to Michigan after going across the rest of America, would you believe that would actually be a round Earth? Or would it be a case of you think that it's gone round the flat Earth map, even though that doesn't actually line up on the flat Earth map?
It does line up on a flat Earth map because north is in the middle of a flat Earth map, and you would just ride around a circle. I got a bowl right here. This is my lunch. Well, my chip bowl. Not fries. The chips.
I know, Chris.
So I don't know how many times I've seen people do this, but people still somehow don't understand. That's the North Pole. This is the South.
I get it.
If you fly east to west, you can come back to the same place all you want. I cannot believe I'm the guy that's doing this now. So if I started in Michigan and if I went down to
do you know how you would falsify that? Do you know how you'd falsify that? So how you could falsify the globe and falsify your one?
Well, you're telling me to go east and west. That's a direction.
But how would you falsify what one would be the correct way of doing it? So one would be a globe, as we said. What would be the way that you would falsify that? What one would you prove is the right one?
I am still not getting how would I falsify. You want to be able to prove a globe, go around from north to south? No. The way that you would falsify that particular thing that would be done on both models, that you could prove on both models, is find out what the models say about the mileage that you'd be in the air. So how long it would take you to do that. Because if the flat Earth map says it would take 4 hours, but it takes 8 hours, then what one would be more likely to be true if it took 8 hours to go around? Well, that comes with some weird things. I know that if you're going east to west and you fly around, it's a thing. But what about who was it that supposedly went around Antarctica back in like the 1500s?
Was it Bird?
No,
or Scott?
I'm not talking about Bird. This is a guy that sailed, and supposedly he did the entire lap of the South, and it took him 60,000 miles. Granted, he'd stopped to go up the coast of South America just a little bit, but then went around at 60,000 miles to be able to go around Antarctica. And that's not how much there is down there. I don't remember who it was, but that was something. I don't remember exactly where it was, who it was, but that's like what you're saying. If it takes me 8 hours to fly around, then it would take it. It's not going to take you longer because it's smaller at the center. It's like, I wish I had my flat Earth map here, but it's smaller at the center. You're still going to go east west no matter what because you're following that compass. If you did a straight line,
I completely agree. No, I completely agree with you. Agree with you. It will be the same point on the maps on both models.
The
way that you would falsify the models is if the model says that one will take you 8 hours to go around that
Mhm.
because of the distances that are on the models, and the other one says it will take you 4 hours. It doesn't matter what one it says that does the 4 and what one says it does the 8. If it ends up being the 8 hours that it takes you to do, then that model would be the correct model, would it not? Rather than the one that says it would be 4 hours.
Well, again, that's only for the one hemisphere. Let's talk about the southern hemisphere.
But we're talking about the same flight pattern.
I must not be understanding what you're saying then, because you're still talking about going east and west.
Yeah, which
And
would be on a
doesn't-
longitude, right? It would be on longitude. It would be on a longitude. So it'd be going round rather than up
Yeah.
and down. So that would work on your, as you quite rightly said, with your chip bowl.
It would,
That would work on the flat Earth model, and it
Yeah.
would work on the globe model because it's
Yeah.
the same
it's
longitude,
the same
right?
distance, yeah.
Yeah. So if it would take 8 hours on one model and 4 hours on the other model, and the plane only takes 4 hours to go around, that would mean that the 4 hours that predicted in that previous model that said it would take 4 hours would be the right model, would it not?
But you're talking about, I don't know who did that. Who went
Were you
faster
working
or
out on the
slower?
models? That's the whole
But you're talking about
possibility
time.
of
You're not
models.
You're not talking about distance. You're talking about time.
The time
I'm
would be
talking about
worked out by the
distance.
distance. That's the reason why I'm saying the time. So if it takes you 8 hours to go 60 miles,
Well,
but it takes you to do the same thing in 4 hours to do something else, it's that doesn't matter
All-
about the time.
all that proves is you had a faster plane on the second time.
Exactly. But
So-
that's the reason why we're talking about miles, the distance. The distance is that. Let me rephrase it then. If you have, it takes 100 miles to go around it in one model, and it takes 200 miles to go around it in another model.
Right.
What model would be the correct one if it took the 200 miles to get round that distance?
Well, if it was in the southern hemisphere, it would be the flat one. That's what I was saying. Is whoever it was that sailed along Antarctica, it took him 60,000 miles to be able to get around.
Okay, I mean, I have to see this. I've never even seen anybody. I've never heard of it, so I wouldn't be able to. even talk about it.
I would
no idea.
have to spend I don't know how long to be able to find it, but according to his journals, this is whoever it was wrote it down in his book. It took him so many amount of months, and he logged down so many miles. He made a trip up the one of the coasts of South America. Didn't go all the way up. This was after they discovered it, so it must have been 1600. But it took him something like 60,000. I think the actual number was like 58 something, or I don't remember exactly what it was. But that's a thing too. So what do we do with that information?
We would have to try and test of how long that he actually took the miles. Going through voyages lasting 3 years, 8 days. Captain Cook and his crew.
Where was Cook?
During 3 voyages lasting 3 years and 8 days, Captain Cook and his crew sailed a total of 60 miles along the Antarctic coastline. Not in one go, but during 3 years of voyages, he did 60 miles of the coastline.
60,000.
Yes, over 3 years.
Over 3 years. So what is that?
Yes, and this is actually from the Flat Earth Around Antarctica. So I can link you to it, but it actually says that Captain Cook sailed around it for 60,000 miles, and it took him 3 years to go and do that. It wasn't one go. Which would make sense considering Captain Cook generally come from England most of the time. And the video that you were talking about is probably coming from either Wild Again Dan or Eric DeBay. And it would have been one of his 200 proofs.
DeBay.
Yeah, I know.
And that's probably one of the ones that I either stopped looking at or I wasn't coming around to it. See, that's information that I can write out now. Because again, I'm learning everything, and I'm not perfect. It doesn't mean that it's round. It just means it is what it is.
That's fine. That's why I'd like to go into models, talking about distance, the time, the mathematics of how the models are actually predicting things. Because if we can talk about the predictions and falsifying the predictions, then the more predictions that we falsify for each model, the more likely it is to be the other model. Wouldn't you agree?
I would suppose.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. That's how we gain knowledge, isn't it? We try and falsify it.
Yeah, that's why. And I've always said that I am more than willing to be proven wrong on several things. Whether I go from here and then go look it up and then find out that something else was completely different than what it was, that's completely another thing. And, again, that'll be on you too, whether you decide to go and if you happen to take one thing that I said and look at it and you're just like, oh, okay.
Just wanted to point out, I've actually taken 4 things that you said and Googled them to look them up so I knew what you were talking about to try and work out what was going on. Because I did not know about the Cook taking 3 years to do the 60,000 miles. I had to look it up. That's not something I knew off the top of my head.
Yeah. No, and see, that's one of the few things you can rely on the internet for anymore. Holy smokes.
Yeah. But yeah, I think if we look at trying to falsify the models, as you quite rightly said, rather than talking about the YouTube videos and things like that, it's better to try and falsify those models and try and disprove the other model more than it would be to try and say that this video proves this and this video proves that.
No, I never said anything proves anything. I said
I know. I meant in general. I wasn't being specific to you. I was just being in general.
Everything shows a question is what it does. And again, until I can somehow reasonably see it with my own eyes, it makes you got to ask those questions. You just got to, at this point, you got to question everything.
Can I ask you a question? And it may seem a little bit childish to begin with, but just roll with it. There is a method to it.
Okay.
Can you see air?
Can I see air? I can see air when there's fog. I can see
That's not
air. Okay, then I can see water droplets when the air flows through it. I can see leaves whenever the air pushes through it.
That's air pressure.
I can.
I'm just saying.
I can see air when it is pushing a gas around. You can call it whatever you want, but I'm going to call it air.
Okay, so how do you know that you're breathing air when you're breathing in and out?
I don't know. Morpheus, tell me.
Because we've tested the air quality of what we're breathing in and breathing out. We've tested lungs of what they breathe and what they don't breathe.
Yeah, I know that. I understand that people have figured out what we do and breathe and don't breathe.
But that's my point. You said that you have to use what you see to make your knowledge true.
Yeah.
But we don't see atoms, but we know they exist. We don't see molecules, but we know they exist.
I know that when I have... Oh, that's a good one. When I have done those experiments in science class, where we... Oh, how do I want to prove this one? Or how do I want to say this one, really? It's not that you could it's somehow boiling water and you could take out, the oxygen and stuff like that. And that it turns it into oxygen that we can have. And of course, that doesn't prove the oxygen, nitrogen, whatever content of air that we have. I'm not a scientist to be able to do that, but that's something that I can take in and I can understand. Now, is that true? Is it that, it's this thing called nitrogen and this thing called oxygen? I mean, that's what somebody has said. Now, there's nobody out there that's been telling me that I can breathe, methane. There's nobody out there that's telling me that I can breathe, carbon or whatever. People tell me that all the time. There's not a second concept going on there. It's not that, one guy says that, again, one guy says that they can see a curve out of a plane window and another guy can't. That's not it. Everybody says that we breathe air. I have not heard one person tell me that, we breathe something else besides this. If somebody told me that, then maybe we got to look into that. I don't know.
Would that be a way of actually running our lives, so to speak? So, say for instance, I come out and said, "Well, we don't actually breathe air. What we actually do is we breathe out carbon dioxide, and that's good enough for our respiratory system to work." Or do we know that we take in oxygen, our blood then siphons off the oxygen, and we get carbon dioxide as a replacement for that when we breathe out?
Apparently, that's how it works. I don't.
hmm
I don't know every single little thing about how my body does it. I know that I take the air in. If the air is foul, then I don't want to be there. But then when I release it, it releases out into the world. The trees get a hold of it, and it gives it back to us.
hmm
That's what we're told, and that's it's. I haven't been other than hearing that carbon dioxide is now ruining the world somehow. Which, okay, is it? I don't know. Other
Yeah,
than
it's to
hearing
do with
that,
its reflective properties.
so the last time they told me anything was that all the trees in the world like that stuff. Now they're telling us that cow farts are killing us. How did that change? How did that change? How did it change that we have this great wealth of grass and trees and anything that's green on this world that takes everything we breathe out, turns it into something we can breathe in. Now suddenly, magically, we just can't do it anymore, and that it's killing us.
Well, that would be because of the deforestations of all of the forests. Like, for instance, there is a football field every hour that is being taken away from the Amazon at the moment. That doesn't include all of the forests that have been taken away from Europe, the forests that have been taken away from America. Now, there's still lots of forests, lots of trees. But if you're taking away literally the lungs of the earth in the Amazon forest, and you're taking away a football pitch every hour, that's a lot of that's a lot of carbon dioxide that's being lost to be turned back into oxygen again.
Well, I don't know if that's how that works or not. I am definitely not a scientist on that.
Sure.
That was something that you were told. So,
Well, I mean, if we're talking about photosynthesis and we understand that carbon dioxide goes into the plants and then it produces oxygen from that process, and when it's talking about doing the sugars in the sunlight, then, and we can see that when we do school, and we can get that from when we've done school, then I can infer that if there isn't enough trees to be able to do that, then we're going to obviously have a buildup of carbon dioxide because there's no trees to photosynthesize that back into oxygen.
well, yeah, you can think that. I don't know if that's true.
Okay.
I reasonably, yes, I went through the same thing. We were planting trees and doing the whole deal whenever I was in school, and of course, they've been telling us that the whole world's going to melt every 10 years since I was pretty much born. So, I'm waiting for it at this point. It's just not happening. You believe that the Earth is going to flood out whenever the ice caps melt?
Oh, if the ice caps melt, then yes, of course it will do.
So if an piece of ice melts inside of a glass of water, does the water level rise?
Yes, generally. Does it overflow? No, but it does rise. Or do you not agree with
that? Because there's ice that's sitting on the top of the glass or sticking outside of the glass.
Sure.
Yeah. But the majority of all the ice that they say that's going to melt is supposedly underneath the water.
Not just that, we also have a lot of glaciers as well.
No,
and a lot of the snow on top of the mountains are also starting to melt.
That one is definitely a hard sell for me because, again, they've been trying to push that stuff. Actually, before we were born, they were trying to push that stuff back in the late 1800s. So wait for the day.
Sure.
Just wait until they carbon tax you to death on that one. Have fun with that.
But I think
you guys have carbon tax though, don't you? Don't you guys?
Oh yeah, of course we do. Yeah.
Yeah. Where they're loading us up now, so we're I'm trying to tell everybody I can. It's like it's gonna come and they're gonna tax you to death. But no.
So the main thing that I wanted to take away from this is the idea of when we're talking about different things. I think that we, at least us two, have probably come to the agreement of when we're talking about beliefs, as long as you can logically rationalize it, beliefs are okay. You can believe what you want to believe.
Mm-hmm.
I think when it comes to finding a truth of the matter, we need a way of being able to discern what knowledge is. And I think we're coming to terms with the idea of the way that we do that is by testing and falsifying models.
I can agree with that. I think we're coming to the same point. It's just that there are. I will admit there are biases. I will be the first one to admit that there is a bias on my side because
I have some on mine as well.
So it's and not everything is cut and dry, and we're definitely not perfect when it comes to this stuff because there is a lot that we were told. There's a lot of stuff that we can find out for ourselves. We can Google something up and see what's going on.
Sure.
But on the end of it, I still say there is that massive deception that has been in place for way too long now. Possibly 200, 300 years. Something evil has taken over and has slowly manipulated us into a place where we are now, where you just don't know what's true and not true. And I can't.
Would you say that evil's a version of Satan, or at least doing the bidding of Satan? Or would you say it's just evil?
I would say that a part of it is that man himself is evil. He gets some of that from Satan. There was
I would argue you get some of it from God, but
God gives us evil. I've already said that God gives us evil to try us. But on that same token, there was. I know not a lot of people put stock into it. The Book of Enoch. Because people will, just say, "Oh, it's just a book; it doesn't mean anything." But it talks about after so many years, the fallen angels will be released onto the world. After a certain amount of time, from a certain point, Daniel, I think, says the same thing in the Bible, where it will come to a point, and they will be released, and then the evils of the world will come back, and I think it was Rob Skiba that actually did it. He calculated it out to where it was right around the mid 1800s was when this timeline happened. And it was like we went from horse and buggies and wagons to cars, everything. Because all of these demons that had all of the knowledge of the world were released all at once. I don't know if you want to buy into that. You don't have to.
I mean, not when I can see the technological timeline of how the actual timeline works, but no, not for me.
It's just kind of interesting how we can go for, what was it, 700, 800 years, horse and buggy, and then just magically out of the blue, it's like cars.
Well, yeah, the reason for that is innovation. And when we're in a world war, we want innovation. We want things to get done quicker. We want to be able to carry more. We want petrol. We want to be able to get tanks. You know, we need more protection. Where if we haven't got the idea of, oh, well, we need these things, we don't need or want them, so they don't get made.
Well, that's going to be another one that we're going to have to disagree on.
Well,
I have my own problems with the timeline, man.
No, that's fine. Let me put it this way. If I'm happy riding a bike to work because it gets me to work, but now I've changed jobs, but my bike doesn't let me get there, I now need to find a new way of getting there, don't I?
Well, necessity is the mother of all invention, supposedly.
And that's what I meant by war.
But cars were made in the late 1800s.
Yes, they were. Yes.
I mean, Ford had cars on the assembly line before the First World War.
They did, but only just. So I think it was about 5-6 years.
So the World War was not the necessity of invention that created cars.
Not created cars, no, but it bolstered the increase of how cars were manufactured and increased how they were actually done. Because the cars themselves were absolutely crap when they were first made, to the point of they would only go like 5 to 8 miles per hour, and you had to hand crank them for ages. But
a lot of those cars are still on the road.
Yeah, I wouldn't say a lot. I would say that they're the collector items that a lot of people put a lot of money in.
You should come up. You should come out to Indiana where they have the old the Model T festivals, and there's like 30, 40 of these things that are still running. It's a pretty amazing thing. But
and they come from all over your nation.
This all over Indiana is what they say. So, but I can't get a 2012 Hyundai Elantra to last for more than 8 years because it's a piece of junk, and I have to keep filling it up with oil and keep replacing parts on it.
Yeah, but you'd have to do that with the Model T as well. The thing is with the Model T is that it has simpler parts. So if you have a simpler calculator, it lasts a hell of a lot longer than what your phone does.
It had
because it has more parts to go wrong.
It had far more simpler parts for a far more simpler time that lasted way longer than the crap that we're buying now.
But yet the Honda would completely and utterly outperform the Model T on absolutely everything.
It would absolutely last. Absolutely. But that doesn't mean that, by the end of it, if something happens and all of those electrical parts die out, that people aren't going to have to go back to the tried and true old cars of, the 50s and 60s and 70s.
Why would we need to go back to those types of cars when we still have the innovation and the factories to work for the new cars?
What if there was a problem with the computers? Everything just stopped.
We would still have the manufacturing blueprints. We could go back to using people rather than computers.
I'm not talking about having things like that. What if there was I love the dystopian movies that whenever they show that the good guy needs to get a car, that he always tends to find like some, badass 1969, I don't know, Chevy Nova or something that he drives because it has no tracking in it. It has no computers in it. It has no, electronical parts that might screw up. It just has the standard tried and true stuff in it. It might have the headlights and it might need the battery to be able to crank, but it's still that tried and true stuff.
Sure.
And I might not make any sense, but that's not even the argument we were having. It was the massive
innovation
that happened around the 1800s. It was something happened around the 1800s. I don't know, because everything that we have now for some reason came out of the 1850s. It's like somehow miraculously everything was lost between like the 1200s and the 1700s. And then it's like the Renaissance, everything's here. It's like all the music and all the
one of the biggest things that happened in 1850 was the idea of travel. So before then, travel was a thing. I'm not saying it wasn't, but it was easier to be able to get a steamboat to be able to get from England to America, and from America to go down to South America, from South America to go back up to Europe again. Now, Back in the day, that would take a year. But in the 1850s, they'd probably take you about 2 months, maybe 3. And that gave the idea of innovation for more people to get in contact with other people, produce more ideas. So if you had cars going off in America, they would be able to get transported to England. People from England would have a look at their engineering and go, oh, I could improve this, I could improve that. Then it would get shipped off to Germany from there. Then it would get improved from there. And then it would go to China. China would absolutely rip the crap out of it and then build everything from cheap and then send it to Australia. And then they would do exactly the same thing. And that's how that cycle of innovation would work.
Right. Well, that may be true. I don't know. I know that it fits within your timeline, but I have to question that. Just like everything else, I have to question it.
No, that's absolutely fine. I think that we've been going for long enough. It's 3 hours and 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So
My
I think we
wife
had a
is
decent one.
my wife is texting me too. She's like, "Are you still on?" Yeah, I'm still online, baby. I'm still here.
Yeah.
She knows when she get me going, I can talk and talk and talk.
Well, I just hope that we were able to raise some decent questions for people and show that even though that we fundamentally disagree on many different things, it was absolutely a great conversation, and I think that we learned a lot from each other.
I hope we did. I hope I got enough of a message out to be able to help people understand that it's not just about the flat Earth. It's about questioning everything. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not just taking everything at its word so much. It's about questioning, and then, like you said, finding the truth, testing it, and then going from there. Whether I find that out or not, or whether you find that out or not, that's going to be on the both of us. It's going to be about finding it for ourselves and understanding.
Yep, no, I completely and utterly agree with that. The only thing that I would want you to do from this conversation is keep your belief in God, keep your belief in what you believe, and that's absolutely fine. But when it comes to making claims about knowledge, do what you said, test it, see if it fits.
Yep.
Because we can all say, well, that doesn't look right. I can say the same thing. Well, I can see a curve, so there must be a curve, and vice versa. So if we can test it, we can then prove to ourselves, doesn't matter about anybody else, we can prove to ourselves that the knowledge that we hold is knowledge and not a belief.
I think that works. I think that absolutely works.
Okay.
I don't think anybody was changed, but I think that without a shadow of a doubt, that right there is what needs to be said. Is we have to definitely question everything at this point.
No worries then. Right. I will bid everybody a farewell and adieu, and I will speak to you all again real soon. So bye-bye for now.